Testing.
Good.
Good evening. Today is Monday, September 11th. Oh, can you take yours? Sorry about that. Today is Monday, September 11th, 2023, and we will call the meeting to order at 5:34 p.m. and we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll start school committee member introductions with Counselor Scott.
Linda Scott, Lewiston City Council Representative.
Megan Hurd, Ward 6.
Ashley Medina, Ward 5.
Tanya Whitlow, Ward 4.
Elizabeth Eames, Ward 3.
Janet Bowden, Ward 2.
Bruce Damon, Ward 1.
Megan Parks at large.
Jake Langley, Superintendent.
Karen Puckett, Assistant Superintendent.
And hello, everyone. Paul Beauplan, Ward 7 from home.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that members would like set aside? Seeing none, the consent agenda is adopted. Public input. Members of the public may address the school committee for up to 3 minutes on non-agenda items now and on agenda items later. Comments that pertain to staff, personnel matters, or a student issue should be directed to the superintendent or the appropriate staff member of Lewiston Public Schools. Public comments shall be directed to the school committee and be brief, not repetitive, and related to the matter at hand. Before starting, please state your name, address, and affiliation to Lewiston Public Schools. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on non-agenda items? Seeing none, we will move along. Agenda item number 5 is to recognize Lewiston Public Schools staff. Superintendent Langlis will do that.
So we have a big group today. I think that's a good part of the audience. So thank you all who could make it tonight. A few weeks back, on the 17th, they had an end of season or end of outreach effort celebration. And as part of a celebration, they got together at Longley, store next door, and resources they were able to collect, fundraising, other efforts, tying in grants, reaching out to community. Thousands of backpacks were handed out. There were activities for kids. Fire department was there to check out a fire truck. EMTs were there to check out an ambulance. Bus was there so we could talk about buses and what it'd be like to be a driver, hoping we get more of those someday. And I'm sure I'm missing a number of pieces, but for me, it was a real high to an extent because there were so many people there engaged, excited to be coming back to school. Every school had a tent. They could check enrollments. They could give you the colored backpack you wanted as long as we had some left. It was really just a great event to see the energy around coming back to school. And that doesn't go without the outreach that happened over the summer. And so the outreach efforts are massive. And the amount of work that goes into it on a weekly basis, calling students that we know are homeless or in need of supports, their families specifically connected to, non-permanent housing. Again, using the grant funds to reach out to multilingual families, keeping them connected to school, having that trusted face of, hey, when I go back to school, I know I'll see this person in my school that I know knows a little bit about me and feels good about that. So what we'd like to do is recognize the group of folks that did that work. And I think an asterisk on every single one of them for doing great work this summer with outreach, but also if Natasha would come up to the podium. She's probably going to hate me for this one, but Natasha Turcott for years now has really been a standout at Montello and the work that she's done, but her energy and enthusiasm around outreach and work with families and supporting them with their needs has extended beyond Montello's realm. And the work you did this summer with outreach and coordinating the efforts, I think we're going to give a round of applause to everyone, but I'd like to give one solely to you before we pass out certificates. Thank you so much. I think sometimes the work that we do, if you don't have a champion behind the work, it's like work kind of gets done. And then there's champions that really make the work look like something we've not seen before. And you've done that. So thank you so much. So other outreach staff. So we have a few people at every school, some a little more, some a little less, depending on what we had for availability. And again, with grant funding, this outreach was made possible. But if I could, I'd like to read off all the names, and I'd love for everyone to just come right up here in front of the speaker and near the flags, because I think you should all be recognized for the work that you've done. I'm going to go in order of school that I have, but if you could please come up. Tim Smith, Sam Dolan, Jack Neary, Sherry Monteith, Bonnie Moore, Jordan Cunningham Williams, April Karen, Jim Cliff, Kelsey Bridgham, Diane Wigant, Raya Bowie, April Littlefield, Luba Green, Rosemary Burgess, Amanda Hammond, Morale Altieri, Ashley Shaw, Deanna Earhart, Karen Lacey, Misty Favreau, Jamie Cowett, Dan Sansucci, Anissa Abdi, Joel Morse, Katrina Adams, Natasha Turcott again, Ashley Hutchinson, Allison Langlis, Lisa Anktel, and Teresa Jordan. Now, though many people couldn't be here tonight for various reasons, but I'd love to, again, just a huge round of applause to all these folks who have made a difference for families and keeping them connected to school and got them coming back. Who wants to help? Yeah, yes. Actually, no, I wasn't.
Oh, you were fine.
If I have something Geiger, I was just going to do it for office now. I was going to. Perfect.
Not here.
Those who are here, I want to go.
Okay. Go find them. Punch them down.
I did have a student say to me this morning.
Oh, yeah, it's the same as talking out loud.
No one can hear you if you're not on the mic.
There you go.
I did have a student tell me this morning when I walked into his classroom that he remembered me coming to his community. Do you remember seeing me this summer? He said. That was nice.
I could go on for days. My students and families. But the biggest thing I think is like during summer outreach, when we are identifying students that are homeless and coming across those students, we're getting them identified. We're helping that process before school starts. So it's not like identifying them the week of school starting and then them missing 2 weeks of school. So that's my biggest push, is that attendance and getting those kids transportation set up before school starts. And so that was a huge push for all of us as a combined as a community to identify all the students. Like Geiger, Farwell, everybody's identified different kids throughout this district. And so that was just a really big help. So I appreciate everyone's help. So thank you.
And where I teach at McMahon, we spend a lot of time at Hillview, walking around, getting to know the families. I've worked at Hillview for 15 years, so I'm very familiar with the place, and a lot of families get in there, they stay there for a while. So we spent a lot of time there. We also loaded up the van and went around driving through our neighborhoods to find children and families, pass out school calendars, snacks, sometimes toothpaste, deodorant, things like that, these little survival bags for them to hopefully pass on to somebody else that may need it. So very rewarding. Thank you.
Thank you all. This is what community is about, and I appreciate every one of you. Thank you. Anyone else have comments before we move on? No? Okay. Agenda item number 6 is to receive and potentially vote on a partnership proposal for Kaden's Kitchen to support students and families in need. And Superintendent Langlis will open that up.
And I believe Kevin is here, maybe behind the podium there, if he wants to come up to the microphone. I'll put your slideshow up, Kevin.
Okay, is that better? All right, perfect. All right, so my name is Kevin Bollard. I am the president of Kaden's Kitchen Food Pantry. We are a 501c3 nonprofit food pantry / community resource center located here in Lewiston. Back in 2017, quick brief background, our daughter, Kaden Bollard, who is currently a sophomore at Lewiston High School, started this organization to help give back to the community. We have since grown from a small bedroom in our home to about a 2,000 square foot facility in the Lewiston community. We partner daily with several of our local nonprofit organizations and work closely with several social workers and case manager organizations throughout the community to provide support for families and children in need. So basically, over the years, we've had continued requests from an elementary / middle school level of children who are, or families who are just basically lacking, the basic necessities to start the day, whether it's clothing, whether it's having to walk to school in the middle of winter with holes in your shoes or a broken backpack. All of those small challenges can become huge challenges, to families who lack the normal resources that a lot of us are privileged with. So one of our goals as an organization is basically to combine the resources that are available to the individuals that are in need. So ultimately, what we would like to do, and can I forward this screen? Do I have the ability to forward the screen or? Okay, yeah. So we can go on to the next screen here. Yeah, so I did the about us. So we can move on now to the next slide as well. So the objective basically is we believe every student in Lewiston should have access to everyday necessities and standard clothing options to start their day. We believe in the end, this will just help improve the overall experience and ability to get the best education possible. To us, it's about the 3 C's: connections, confidence, and making the school day carefree. We feel anytime a student, a staff member has that extra ability to create that connection with the student, that just really, creates a better experience for the student and for the teacher overall. It's a frustrating situation for us to think that teachers might be walking by a situation in school that they might identify or notice or feel like they don't have the opportunities to address, whether it's due to confidentiality or just the resources not necessarily being available. We do feel that the more carefree of an environment that we can set up for these students, the more that they can enhance and improve their education opportunities. And so basically our mission is to make sure that every student has the opportunity for these basic needs. We do realize there is a shortfall currently with these resources between classes of K through 8. The store next door does provide great resources for our high school students, and they actually do trickle down some resources to the middle school and elementary schools as needed, but there's still a significant shortfall that is not being fulfilled. We feel that we have the ability to streamline that connection and that process and bring these resources to the school district and to the students who need them most. Our vision is when a student or staff member sees or highlights one of these challenges, whether it's a school nurse or whether it's a guidance counselor or a teacher, that they have the ability to quickly scan a QR code. That QR code would prompt up an automated email template. This would be available with any phone that has camera access on it, which is basically almost all your phones these days. So a simple scan of a QR code, it brings up an automated template. No information needs to be provided in regards to the student. We just need to know what the specific request would be and what school that request would be for. Within 24 to 48 hours would be our goal to fulfill all of those requests and have that item delivered directly to the school, so that it basically, in an ideal state, a student might walk into classroom first thing in the morning with no jacket on. A teacher notifies this. It could be, 3 degrees out, and that student might have that same walk home. The teacher might have an opportunity to scan a QR code, send us an automated email request. We get that request. We potentially could have it filled within an hour or two, get that jacket dropped off to the school. That child would have a jacket to wear for his walk home. We wouldn't need to know any information about the child. The teacher wouldn't need to disclose any information. They basically just need to give us the size that would be needed and what resources required. And we would fulfill it from there and drop it off directly to the school. So therefore the teacher doesn't have to worry about leaving the school, going on their lunch, trying to find a way to pick it up, connecting it to the student while still respecting their confidentiality. We would deliver that item directly to the school without any information needed from the student or regarding the student. So obviously the question would be how we get there. So we say in-school voucher is probably not the best word. But ideally, as far as a physical card, in our resource center, we have everything from clothing, shoes, toys, bedding, books, dishware, food. So this literally, it's the sky's the limit as far as the potential opportunities that would be available with this type of resource. And it would have the ability to have a voucher program simple as a business card. It's not necessarily a business card. It's basically kind of a free resource pass that can be given to any student. That student can come in with their family and have access to our resource center and all of our goods at no charge for all of the family members' needs. We would also have the QR code available, hopefully in all of the schools, whether it's in the nurse's office. A simple scan of the QR code could prompt an email request. We could get that request filled and have it dropped off within 24 to 48 hours. No charge to the student, the staff, the school district. All of these resources would be provided at the expense of our organization with resources that we currently already have available. We would also provide a website. We already own the rights to cadenskitchen.org. We would basically create a password protected page on that website that would allow any administrative person from the Lewiston School District to log into that web page and also submit a request through those means as well. Ideally, we can expand it to where we have checkbox options to where it's more of a streamlined option. You basically just everything's drop down. You need pants, it drops down to boys. You need boys, it drops down to the size. Ideally, all of that would be included. So it's a very streamlined process for the student, for the staff member logging into that site. And along with that, it would be the free opportunity for all of these resources to be delivered to any Lewiston school. So ideally, basically, if the school is located in the Lewiston School District, we would be willing to deliver these resources at no charge once a request was submitted. And in addition to that, we would open our resource center completely to all of the families in the Lewiston School District. So if there was a particular family that needed bedding or dishware or houses, or if we know a new family, over the past 2 weeks, we've had 30 new refugee families who have visited our resource center, all with school age children. And they're starting out with nothing. This past school year, before the beginning of the school year, we provided 2 back to school clothing giveaway days and provided school clothing to over 150 children in the Lewiston School District, all at no charge. So we genuinely feel if we have the resources available and the needs are there, then it's our opportunity to connect those resources to the need. And I think one thing that the residents of Lewiston are always asking for is more resources with less costs. And everything seems to be at the taxpayer expense. And I feel this would be an opportunity to solidify a great resource for our students at zero cost to the school. And that would be for the existence of the program.
So I want to add a couple things. So we already have a relationship with multiple entities in our community. As you know, we work closely with the store next door, with the Student Resource Center that's at Longley. We also already work with Kaden's Kitchen with students who are coming in that need certain resources. We as a school system are obligated under law to provide certain resources to students who show up to register for school. When Kevin used the word voucher, that's often the term used in that process. It does not cost Lewiston Public Schools money directly. It doesn't cost local taxpayer money. It's a federally funded component. The key to that for us, though, is really around tracking. And this committee has talked about it before. Of how do we figure out how to work with someone who can figure out the tracking of things? Because we have to know what kid, what items, when, and make sure that resource is specifically tallied so that can feed back into the system for appropriate costs and things like that. So what Kevin brought forward as part of this proposal is having a system around that tracking. And so right now, what we do oftentimes, we issue someone a voucher, or we have staff that will go and get things for students. Jamie and Joel, the store next door, often chime in and help. And again, it still comes back to that tracking piece of what kid, what things, and what resources. And so this would be a no cost to us approach to doing something that we already do. I also think it's got some efficiencies in it that we don't currently have in place, where if we issue a family a voucher, they can go to Walmart to use that voucher and they're buying clothing and other items. that are needed. Again, it doesn't have a cost to us, but if we have a resource that's, reusing, lightly used materials or even some new things that they get through donations, then we should be distributing those items as best as we can. So wanted to bring this before you because this is new and it's an area that we've had a lot of discussions about. But I also just want to be upfront that we already have a relationship with Kaden's Kitchen for a number of different things that we do. This is just a different step in resourcing families, tying it to that specific voucher system, with Kevin's team helping with the organization of the tracking so that it's reportable. And so,
Any questions? Member Eames?
So I'm just trying to get some clarification. The vouchers are for students who are somehow being federally tracked, but you also spoke about allowing families from LPS to just come to Kaden's Kitchen and choose things. And I didn't know if that was a contradiction or just a different population or what.
So we have our needs for students that are connected to schools specifically that have been identified. And what Kaden's Kitchen has said is we will take care of that tracking piece, but also if the family has other needs and we can help, we certainly will. I don't know if you want to add to that, Kevin.
Yeah, it basically just to elaborate what Jake said, we have the ability to track from the student level. But at the same time, we don't want to limit our resources to a student. Maybe that child realizes that his mother doesn't have a jacket and she's walking to work every day. It would be an amazing opportunity for that child to be able to get that jacket and bring it home to his mother. And I think just being able to build that potential connection would be a great value to our students.
Any other questions or comments? Members, Counselor Scott?
Thank you. So, you just mentioned our last presentation, but that's what community is. This is also what community is. I thank you. I honestly do, that somebody is thinking outside the box, looking at a different way that we can help some of our families in need, some of our children in need. The idea that a little kid could, knowing that his mom may not have a winter coat, and do a QR code and something comes to the school later on for mom or for the child. I was thinking about it. So I don't talk about this too much, but when I was in the second grade, I had to go to school with no socks on and my summer clothes because we couldn't afford to get new clothes. And I remember getting bullied because I was not fully dressed for the first day of school at Sherwood Heights. And, I'm 55 years old now, and I still remember that day vividly and how I felt. And the fact that we could help kids and what the others that have already been recognized, what we're doing to help those kids so that they don't have to navigate through that stress when they're also stressing about starting school or meeting new friends is a wonderful thing. And I commend you. I support this 100%. And I thank you.
Member Medina?
So first of all, I just want to say I respect what you do in the community. I've seen you in action. I've been to Kaden's Kitchen and I see the impact that you're making in people's lives. It's no secret, and I always talk about my experience in poverty, in raising my kids as a single mother. And there was a point in time where I had to walk my kids to school back when Longley, and I had to walk my kids. And there was times where I didn't have the money to get myself a jacket or to get my kids what they needed. My daughter came home one day and told me, hey, my teacher said you need to get me clothes that fit better, or my teacher said that you need to buy me jackets or things like that. And even though I told her like, well, tell your teacher I'll try, but like that killed me inside. But also there was days where I had to walk in just like 3 sweaters in the freezing cold, no boots on. So I just think this is so important. And just thank you for thinking out of the box, like Linda said, and I appreciate your work.
Thank you. Member Beauplant?
Thank you. I'd just like to double what Member Scott said, her eloquence on the importance of this, the necessity, the appreciation, the sacrifice that you and your family have made for this. This is a no-brainer. Thank you very much. My entire support on it.
Thank you. Member Damon?
Jake, does this partnership proposal, is this basically create an MOU of a memorandum of understanding between Kaden's Kitchen and the district so that it's more official so that they don't have issues as far as being able to deal with the vouchers and stuff like that?
I think this would establish I don't want to say a bare bone, but pretty light MOU in that, you know, he'll have certain needs from us and we'll have expectations of him from the tracking perspective. So I would expect an MOU. I did talk to Kevin in advance about, is there any crossover of funds from us or funds to you or funds of that nature? And he said, no, he said the way in which they're resourced, it doesn't, he's not even looking for us to like co-sign in on grants for different things. He feels like he can accomplish the resource without that, so that those kinds of things wouldn't have to be part of an MOU. But I do think we'd have some kind of agreement just as our responsibilities and your responsibilities piece.
Member Heard?
Thank you. I just have a clarifying question. Any of these that we work with, like Kaden's Kitchen or Store Next Door, anything like that, does that in any way, shape, or form reduce or potentially reduce or have a conflict with other grants that we're receiving for like our McKinney-Vento program and stuff like that? Like if these kids are getting access to these other services, does that lessen the contribution from the government or from the state by any way, shape, or form?
There may be some pieces that are as needed reimbursement style, so it may reduce that, but where that resources families, it also saves us money because that reimbursement formula requires staff time to do so. But we're required to do that reimbursement cycle regardless. And so if we have a community partner that might not need to spend different funds or what the voucher might provide. So our obligation is to provide. It doesn't necessarily mean they have to go buy new. And so trying to be smart about that. So there's a piece to that. I would say there's also other grants that the criteria is very specific. So when the grants are issued, we follow those specific guidelines. I don't know if you know of any that are.
So I would say we could receive 3 times what we receive from the federal and state government for this particular population of students and still not have enough funds to do so. So knowing the McKinney-Vento law and knowing the rules around the funding, it's really based on the number of identified students we have and the need within our area. And there isn't a whole lot of were you able to meet all the needs with the money that you received? It's just the law is you need to help remove those barriers. So I would say yes to what Jake said, but also I don't see us losing funds anytime soon for the students that we're specifically talking about because of our need and the amount of money that we currently receive.
Any further questions or comments? Are there any members of the public that would like to speak on this before we go to vote? Yes.
Good evening, Tim Gallant, City of Lewiston. I've got a few questions and I think what they do is fabulous. So let's start out with, it's not about what they do for our community. A voucher, is voucher not money? Superintendent?
So as Kevin mentioned earlier, the voucher is a term that's used in part of making sure resource provider. But what we would be doing with Kaden's Kitchen is issuing essentially an agreement that he's going to provide the things that we are obligated to provide. So
he'll receive money.
No, there's no money exchanged in that process. He will get the resources through his means, and we will satisfy what the student resources are required to get through this agreement.
So if a student takes a voucher to Walmart to get a jacket, that's money, correct?
Correct.
If they take a voucher to him, it's not money.
Correct.
So why does a voucher need to be involved and not use this piece of paper that says a student needs a jacket?
Sure. So I guess it's our approach of making sure we're satisfying the tracking of the federal laws. And so the federal law requires that students have certain things fulfilled in this tracking of that. So we use the word voucher because it's comparable in that sense, but it's not a financial voucher.
Okay, thank you. What's the difference between a partnership and an agreement?
what I was referring to a few minutes, the MOU, it's a memorandum of
Right.
understanding. And so we have the MOU would be an agreement to work with this partner. And that's just the language we use to make sure we have just people upstanding, holding up their end of the bargain, and we know what we expect of them and they know what we expect of them.
But
and
but you're
vice
gonna
versa.
make a partnership before the MOU is done. So isn't that like getting the cart in front of the horse? Because what happens if MOU doesn't go through? Does the partnership go away?
As far as connecting kids to resources, not necessarily, but we wouldn't pursue the tracking piece in this way. This is more formalized for the tracking piece.
Okay, and so tracking was my next item. He mentioned he wouldn't keep any information on students. So how does he track them? Are you all tracking them? How does that connection work in that process if he doesn't know that Tim Gallant got a voucher from the school to get a jacket?
So there's anonymity that's required in all of these steps because of the identification in the homeless law.
Mhm.
And so there's ways to track without using student names.
IDs? ID
Uh,
numbers, I'm saying, possibly.
It'll be something to that extent of, again, the way in which we know we have a family from what school required or what things, and not using a student name.
Right, he wouldn't know on that end.
No, we wouldn't distribute that to him.
Right.
And some of that is the challenge in the tracking to begin with, Mr. Glant, in that we have to be very careful with what we do. So the process requires a couple of steps that people may not realize. We can't call Walmart or any other provider for that purpose to say, so-and-so stopping by to get
Right.
these things. That's actually, to be honest, that's part of the challenge with even the voucher system, because a lot of I want to say merchants, that's the wrong term. A lot of retail places, they want to work with schools, but they say, well, just send us the names and tell us when they're coming. And there's restrictions around that. So it's got
Right.
some sensitivities.
Yeah, I understand. I do work with a nonprofit and we do a lot of this work as well. So another question would be was this an RFP that was put out that anybody could apply for to get this relationship with the Lewiston School Department? Or did somebody just decide to think it up and go forward without other organizations having an opportunity to see if they might be interested in helping?
Actually, Kaden's Kitchen approached us.
Okay. So it means after tonight, nobody else can approach you.
I think anybody could approach us. I think the level of need is great. I'd love to.
So you would do multiple partnerships. I guess my question would be, you guys would be open to multiple partnerships?
I would think so, yeah.
Yes, okay, good. Checking things off, thank you. I guess my only concern, and I think the mother getting a jacket is terrific. But if you're using a school voucher, there's no funds involved. So that shouldn't be an issue to be, you can't send a student to Walmart to get their mother a jacket, correct?
In this arrangement, no, we don't do that.
All right, good. Oh, that's all. I was curious because I think there are other organizations that might be interested and who do a lot of work in the community as well that could help, and maybe a partnership or a coalition of 3 or 4 of them together. I have in my mind on September 22nd, 80 jackets being asked for at his organization, and I've been there, and there's no 80 jackets. How do you fulfill it in 48 hours? How many students are going to be like, where's my jacket? After a teacher said you can get one. That's, those kind of things with the mass number being the largest school district in Maine I think is a concern.
Fair
Thank
enough.
you.
Yeah.
Kevin, did you want to speak to any of that?
Yes, just for clarification, and I think I had mentioned this when I originally talked with Jake as well. We don't have to use the word voucher. Like voucher was literally just a generic word we came up with to start the process. If you want a get free goods from Kaden's card, we can call it a get free goods from Kaden's card. It literally does not have to be a voucher. It's just a way to identify that this family was referred by one of our schools to come in for resources, that we just want some identifiable form. So we used voucher for lack of a better term at the time, but it has nothing to do with voucher being associated with funds. The whole concept of the program is for all of these resources to be provided at no charge to the school district, which is what most people are looking for due to the current restraints on our school budgets. So, and in regards to other partnerships being proposed, we're all for that. We would totally invite every organization to step up and help fill these voids. We experience the requests from the school departments over the past couple of years, and we have the families coming into our resource center with these needs. We saw that there was a gap in the resources, that no other organizations were stepping up to fulfill this current gap that we had identified. So we brought forward the proposal. That was the only reason, was to try to connect the need to the resource. If other organizations would like to join the party, the more the merrier. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Member Whitlow?
Yeah, that was all I wanted to say too about the voucher, because when he first originally spoke, he said that that voucher doesn't have to use that term. So I just want to make sure, but he was able to clarify.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion? Member Damon?
I'll make a motion to move forward with the partnership proposal between Lewiston Public Schools and Kaden's Kitchen.
Is there a second? Member-
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion before we vote? Member Whitlow?
I just want to make sure that if Kevin is okay with other organizations being a part of this, that the motion can say that it can be, it doesn't have to be just Kaden's Kitchen, but I think in the grand scheme of things, Kaden's Kitchen would be the one that would be facilitating it all. But how would we make it so that it could be open to other resources if that would be best for our students?
I think if anyone else had another proposal, we would just follow the same process. They would bring it to us and we would vote on it in the same way, and then it would just kind of create a partnership. If that seems, yeah, okay. Any other
I
questions?
think to have more tools is certainly welcome. I know that our office is working hard on McKinney-Vento identified students. Would love to have a list of resources they could reach out to for different levels of need.
All right, all in favor? Oh, wait, we have to do roll call votes because Paul is remote. I almost forgot that. Ward 1, no, Ward. City Council Representative.
Thank you. Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 5. Yes. 4,
Yes.
3,
Yes.
2,
Yes.
1.
Yes.
Yes, and Ward 7.
Yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you. Agenda item number 7 is to review and potentially vote on Maine Inside Out public sessions with review of spring incident.
So we do have some guests here today, representatives from Maine Inside Out. I want to kind of set a precursor if I could. Last spring, there was a terrible incident that involved people being murdered down in the Westbrook area. And it was brought to our attention that maybe the person involved in that was participating in activities that were inside our middle school. And so we did a immediate look in on that. And in our research of that, and I've had no new information come to light. I've even talked to people recently who said they had concerns, and I just asked for, give me anything I can chase and I'll follow it. I have not received any new information. It felt appropriate to put it back on the agenda for a public session item to talk about the work that they do, and also being very mindful of formerly incarcerated staff who have been trained and vetted by them, are being actively involved with, at least in the MOU in the past, or the agreement in the past, to do theatrical expression and identity work with students. This was in the middle school. They've also expressed an interest to doing work at the high school. But I think when this incident popped up, it caused us all to pause. The committee, just after that event, voted to pause, hit the brakes on any future agreements, and take a look at the language of the paperwork, and also to get to know what Maine Inside Out, or what's otherwise known as MIO, does for work, in trying to figure out the constructs of that as it relates to occurring in our schools. I did also talk to some foundation folks who shared this in the memo, that said that the funding connected to this work they believe is important enough to continue. They would support it in the schools, but also said if it's not in the schools, what would schools be willing to do to help facilitate it happening outside of schools? But they would maintain their funding commitment. So all of those pieces are in play. We do have some folks here from Maine Inside Out. I don't know if you want to come up to the podium. And they've also requested, I think after a brief introduction, that we share a video that they also share. And part of what the committee asked for was more information of what goes out to families, what goes out to kids, what kind of work that they do. And so I think a quick intro, they can share some things if they like, but if the chair's okay with it, I'd like to play the video to show some of the work that they do for context.
Just push the button with the head and shoulders on it.
If you wouldn't mind, I apologize, but if just a quick introduction, I think would be helpful.
Sure. We'll all just introduce ourselves by name and role and how long we've been with Maine Inside Out, and then we'll do an introduction. Okay, I'm Margot Fine. I'm one of the co-founders and co-directors of Maine Inside Out, and I've been with the organization since the beginning in 2007.
Yeah, my name is Bashir Matan. I'm a project facilitator at the Lewiston Middle School, and I've been a part of Maine Inside Out since 2016.
Hi, everyone. Bruce King. I am Margot's co-executive director. I've been with Maine Inside Out 5 years as a board member, and then stepped into the role of co-ED 2.5 years ago.
Tyler Jackson. Been with Maine Inside Out for about 6.5 years now, and I co-facilitate here in Lewiston. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. My name is Noah Bragg. I've been with Maine Inside Out since 2017, primarily facilitating theater projects, and also have held many other roles in the organization. I currently lead our projects in Lewiston. I co-facilitate with Bashir and Tyler in the middle school, and I've been doing that for the past few years. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you again. I'm Kiara Liberatori, and I'm a co-founder of Maine Inside Out. So I've been around from the very beginning since 2007. And currently I work on the theater team with many of us here today, and co-facilitate theater work at Mountain View Correctional Facility and over at King Middle School in Portland. And we just wanted to give a brief intro of who we are. So we are a theater organization. We've been using theater for social change for many years now, and we bring together groups of people. They don't have to have any kind of theater experience, but we bring them together to share their stories, to figure out what is their shared issue that they'd like to address with one another. And then we lead them in theater exercises and games based on theater of the oppressed technique. An original play is created, and then it's shared with an audience as a means of bringing about dialogue around something that we all need to talk about together, and that theater might actually help us to talk about in a different way. So that's what we are up to. We focus primarily around, well, we have a history of working in correctional facilities. So when we first began, we were working at Long Creek Youth Development Center, creating plays there for many years with numbers of youth. As we gained a lot of traction working in Long Creek, and some of those young people were being released back into the community and wanted to continue the tools that they had learned with Maine Inside Out, we developed community work, and we began organizing groups in the communities where most of the young people were going home to. So that brought us to Lewiston, and I'll pass this over to Noah that's going to talk a little bit about how we ended up in Lewiston Middle School.
Yeah, so Maine Inside Out has been meeting in Lewiston since 2015 in the community groups that Kara described. And has been a part, has done a number of public performances in Lewiston since 2018, 2019. We've held an annual block party arts performance event in Kennedy Park. And I've just had a number of different community collaborations and partnerships, including performing for the school in 2018 for the entire staff as part of the orientation. And then we're approached by Lewiston Middle School in 2021 to start offering workshops there. So that started in 2022. And we've created 6 plays working with groups of usually 12 to 15 7th and 8th grade students that have been performed, and then in front of audiences of peers, families, teachers, and followed by conversation and dialogue about whatever issues the students want to bring forward. So we have about 30 to 40 students who are now 8th graders and also 9th graders who've done anywhere from 1 to 3 sessions with Maine Inside Out, like successfully created, performed plays and held dialogues with audiences of their peers and families and teachers. And yeah, I think, we have this film that we sent to Jake that we'd love to share with you all. It's about our work in the schools. It's also about our work in the prisons. It's the film that we show to students and teachers and families to explain like who we are and what we're up to. We show it before every performance that we do. It's on our website. It's on YouTube. And I think it's a good way to get to know who we are.
And before I even hit play on this, I don't know if you all have done theater or putting 12 and 13-year-olds on a stage to try to get them to perform something. So the work that you do is pretty impressive, just to build that confidence in kids enough to stand. And they do this in the middle school auditorium. And so that's got its complexity of 800 seats in that space. So even if it's empty, I think it's intimidating for people that are going to get up in front of an audience. So I'm going to hit play on this, and Austin's my tech guy. He knows what we're doing. I just got to make sure I do it the right way. So go ahead and tell me which way to put it.
Paul, are you able to see that?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
Very strong.
Beautiful sculpture.
Thank you.
Try to keep that centered. It helped me. Being nice with others, learning to respect others, and respecting them for who they are.
This is amazing. If you're all out there with each other's backs and supporting each other, the play will be beautiful.
Ready? You be all right. You got this.
Some kids may need a place to show the world they can do anything they set their minds to. I kind of had trust for people now, and I think it's made me more happy.
I mean, I have more focus and more confidence now. Going on stage and performing in front of a bunch of students was a lot of confidence, had to getting up to do that. So, that's how I have confidence.
Then they might be able to learn things about the child they turned a deaf ear to.
The child they thought would be nothing in life.
So please don't judge your book by its cover, and thank you for your time.
Where are we going, Noah? We are headed to Mountain View Correctional Facility in Charleston, Maine, to film an MIO group that's working on a play up here, and a couple guys from that group who are working on Maine Inside Out's first compilation musical and poetry album.
Well, nervous, but ready to conquer today. Like, this is a big step for me. Last time I went to a correctional facility, I was 18 years old, and I'm 26 now. So like, I haven't been inside for a long time, and this is the first time I'm going inside as a free man, but not, I'm not staying. It's go time.
How you feeling, Noah? I'm feeling really good, really confident in our team, and just really excited to see these guys. And the power of Maine Inside Out and theater and music to create positive change in the world. So excited to get to it.
We're making change. That's where we at. And it starts here.
Reassure a piece.
Hopefully we're in visits because it's more private. And so I think that's where we're going.
Thanks, Stacey.
Yep.
How you doing? Good, how are you? Doing great.
Hey! Hey, what's up, Noah?
What's up, man? How you doing?
How you been, brother?
How you doing, Kaden?
Oh, man, I missed you, man.
I know, I missed you too. I heard you guys are doing some incredible stuff up here.
Yeah, we are, man. Yeah,
Well, I love hearing the updates. I'm so happy to see you right now.
So happy to see you too. What's up, man? How you been, bro?
It's been forever, bro.
Oh my God.
I'm so excited.
Stop resisting. Do you want to get tased? We're not resisting. They're not resisting.
Cause when I needed help, I didn't get help. So I was usually mad half the time in school. So that's the reason why I've kind of I just said forget school, but I'm trying to go back. And what I'm trying to say for the Lewiston High School is that if y'all see a kid kind of down and tries to hide himself, kind of talk to him to see what's wrong with him. And then if y'all do, maybe they'll open up to you.
What brings me peace? What brings me peace is creating music, creating plays, just creating something that brings me to peace. I get to show the whole world, hey, this is what I do, and I did make some mistakes, but I'm doing everything I can to change. Just accept me for who I am. That's what brings me to peace.
That just brings me peace, honestly, knowing I'm gonna come home and that I have another chance and I can do what I want with my life, you know what I mean?
For me, what brings me peace, a few different things. Nature, hiking, trees, the ocean, Yeah, man, there's a whole different side of me you don't know.
Hey, yo.
I haven't done actual hiking, more like trails, walking through.
Walk in the woods.
So you walked in the woods. Walked in the woods.
Hey, listen, the passion's there.
It's the energy,
Do you guys know them well enough where we could move to one, kind of transforming from one sculpture to the next?
I call this evolution because it really is evolution. So you start by doing a drug deal, and then from getting drugs, you struggle with addiction, and then struggling with addiction, you're robbing someone for their money so you could support their habit or support your own habit, and then from there you get arrested. And where I was right here was that one phone call that you get when you first get into jail.
Right this way into our humble abode.
This is the main hallway. This is where we get most of our exercise in. Yeah, so we get these tablets. We can do various things on them. We can make beats, real simple beats, generic, hi-hats, bass line. And I put my headphones into it, and I put it onto the phone when I called these guys, and they recorded it. Tyler did his thing with it and sent it back. And then, luckily at this facility, we have a recording studio, which you're about to see.
If not us, then who? If not now, then when? What better time than right now? Tell me, why don't you tell me? If not us, then who? If not now, then when? What better time than right now? Right now.
Through all of that pain, you gotta fight through it. Don't talk about it, man, you gotta do it. And try to act different before you just lose it. That's why I write my life in this music, just to show you I used to be foolish. Running wild in the streets looking clueless. I was young, but I knew I was stupid. So I won't fall in love with them people, cause I know what they do is illegal. And they ain't even treating treating us equal. Speaking facts when the truth could be lethal. So they tryna squish me like a beetle. I know they mad cause I put them on blast. I'm decking it harder cause they on my ass. Little did they know I was moving up fast. And I will not stop to the day that I pass.
If not us, then who? If not now, then when? What better time than right now? Tell me, why don't you tell me? If not us, then who? If not now, then when? What better time than right now? Right now.
We thought we could trust the school where we can.
I feel trust when I'm with my friends.
I feel trusted with my family.
I feel trusted when I'm with my friends.
I feel trusted with my peers.
I feel trusted when I'm respected.
I feel trusted when I'm with my family.
I don't know when I feel trust.
For us to feel trusted, we also have to feel heard. Trust goes both ways.
If not us, then who? If not now, then when? What better time than right now?
I just want to thank you all for having the courage. I will parrot what you said, that I want to thank you for having the courage to share these things and the concerns that have happened this year. And I just have to say, if this is your full performance for the first time in front of an audience, you guys killed it. Nice job.
If you had one thing that you want us or your classmates to take away, what do you hope they hear from your performance?
Trust, and there is some trust in the school that you can go to teachers and talk to them about it, what's your issues and stuff, and they're gonna help you out.
If this happened to you before, that the people who watch this are aware of it now and will at least be a little bit more cautious of their actions, and your thoughts and troubles at least are now being heard, and knowing that other students feel the same way about you.
I say stick with Maine Inside Out. It would be a life changer, you know, for you, because it changed my life. If you got, like, say you're going through something bad, they always gonna be there for you no matter what. Even through your darkest times, you know. If you feel like there's no one you could talk to, you have them to talk to, actually. So get that out your mind, you know. I've actually, you know, did a play at the middle school with all the teachers and everything, and you know that my elementary teachers and all them actually stood up and was like, hey, I never knew that. If I knew that, I would have helped you out. So it's like, this is how you speak and let everybody hear your voice. Everybody will hear your voice, you know. You'll have a chance to speak, and you know, they'll have your back, man. That's all I can say, really. You know, they have my back to the fullest.
And it's just amazing and inspiring to see that you're up here being vulnerable and showing that it's okay to do that.
Thank you for coming, and I would invite any and all of you to my classroom anytime. Help us out, and please reach out to our kids. We need the entire village. Thank you.
Abdi. Hi. Mrs. G, special ed, yes. Ms. Hogate, Ms. Moitoso, nurse. Miss Dumas was her name. We love you.
I love you guys too. You know, to have every single one of you guys around me, you know, to have all this positivity, even in a negative environment, you know, I still got positivity around me, so, you know, I'm just happy to say that I am blessed. You know?
This one here. Okay, thank you. Yeah, just thanks for making time to watch the film. We're really open to being in conversation and dialogue tonight. Welcome any questions. And as I said, there's around 40 students who we've been working with for the past 2 years, who we hope to continue working with, and hope that we can move forward with our partnership for this year and ongoing. Thank you.
Member Eames? I've seen that 4 times, and every time it just really gets to me. So thank you for bringing that to us.
Any other comments, questions from the committee? Member Hurd?
Thank you. So that is my first time seeing that video, and it was very moving, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. I think the work that you do is amazing, in what you're trying to accomplish and how you're trying to reach the students in our school on a different level, I think is amazing. I have to say, when we met with you previously, I was kind of looking for you guys to come in and be like, hey, we're really sorry. This is what we're doing going forward to maybe make sure something like this doesn't happen again, or these are the steps we're taking to ensure, that our staff are safe, that your students are safe, that everybody feels safe and everybody is okay and comfortable with where we're at. And I guess I'm kind of still looking for that. Like, I don't know what's changed or what's going to change. I know you had stated that this individual had attended a public performance after school hours, and I completely understand that. But I guess I'm just looking to see, like, when something like this happens and you have committee members or parents or students or admins that are concerned about what's going on, where's the change? Is there going to be change? What do you guys have in mind? What's your plan? Or do you just plan there is no change, I guess? And that's what I'm looking for from you guys. Like, going forward, what's your process? Where are we going? Like, if we allowed Maine Inside Out to come back into Lewiston Middle School and potentially go to the high school, like, what's your vision going forward, I guess, is what I'm looking for. Sorry, that was a lot.
Thanks so much for bringing that in and for kind of bridging us to the dialogue we started when we came on August 14th. I can just start off and then would welcome any of my team members to join in. I think what was really exciting for me when we came that night was feeling the enthusiasm across the board for more presence from Maine Inside Out, more communication, more sharing of what we do, more out loud, here's who we are. Hey parents, hey teachers, hey Lewiston community, how can we really make sure this information is getting to you so that you are fully aware of what your children are involved with, and we can really invite you into our processes to understand, to help everyone understand how we do keep things safe. I feel really clear about how we do that, and I feel really excited to share that. So I think we talked about some next steps with that, but that's what we've been building towards anyway. But I think feeling the sort of clear request to do that, and also invitation to do that in multiple ways, whether it's coming to open house, whether it's continuing to hold our family nights, we're really here for that. And we're about dialogue, and we're about having the hard conversations. So that's definitely a shift we want to make or continue to make. I think in terms of that hard conversation, what will be your response when something like this happens? How are you keeping things safe? We're happy to answer questions about that. We're doing that on a minute-to-minute basis together, and that's how we have kept things safe in Maine Inside Out environment for years. So that's sort of my first response, and happy to take more questions from you or continue the dialogue. Does anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can just say our track record of safety at the middle school, and also in our programming since 2017 of creating plays and touring them across the state, is pretty clean, and I would say pretty remarkable because of the practices that we have in place. And we have a lot of letters too that I would love to share that I think have been sent to you by teachers, parents, student, just about like what it's like to be in Maine Inside Out, the impact on the school and the community and the environment there. But there's one story from a week in the spring of 2022 when there were maybe like 2 fights a day at the middle school, 30 students suspended. None of those students were students who were participating in Maine Inside Out at that time, even though those might have been students who like the previous semester had been getting into those kind of like fights or like disciplinary infractions. And so, yeah, again, like happy to talk more about like what we do and how we prepare to come into the school and how we hold space with students like in the school and the impact that that's having. And also communication about who we are and how we're coming. Yeah.
Did anyone else from your team want to respond to that before I go back to the committee or? No? Okay. Member Bowden?
Thank you. So after our last meeting, I was left feeling a little unsettled as well, just because I felt like, you know, the major incident, the reason that we had this conversation was because a gentleman, you know, committed a couple murders that was involved with this group and was around our students. I don't know to what capacity, there's differing stories there. But what it comes down to for me still is transparency with parents and safety. And I think about what it takes to get hired as a Lewiston employee. Even as a school committee member, we are forced to get background checks. We go and do our fingerprints and get background checks. And I would like to know, I guess from you, Jake, what would just disqualify someone from being in the schools with students once a background check or whatever is done? I'm just curious because I just feel like for safety purposes, it still leaves me feeling really uneasy.
So the background checks that people get for, say, teacher certification, that runs through the state. The state does a fingerprinting, criminal history records check. We've actually asked for details about the criteria for passage and non-passage, and it's not real clear. And so that makes it a real challenge. We have since started doing our own background checks at the district level, both for staff and for volunteers. And so as those come back, we sometimes have to review them. I'll give you a very real example of a volunteer that wanted to go on a field trip with students that had I think it was like an 8-year-old violent act, but it involved the student, and they requested, you know, permission to still attend, and we denied that. Same respects, we've had things that are on people's records that are 10 and 12 years old. It did not involve violence, sometimes a domestic dispute, but not violent, or things that were dropped, things of that nature. And so it comes down to a level of discretion of, can this parent attend a field trip with their kid? And then we vet that through. I will often meet with that person to talk about their history. I want to see what they present. I want to see how they react to my questions. And I really have to go on my own judgment and my discretion on whether I allow parents or not. And we've done both. I've said, sorry, I can't do it. And I've said, yes, I think that this is a safe thing to do. I always communicate with administration about those to make sure, one, if I said no, that might not lead to a great conversation as a follow-up, and to keep me in the loop with that. But also if it's someone that we've said yes to, just, you know, what is this trip? Are they alone with kids ever? Are they always with other adults? You know, that kind of makeup, just to make sure we're being smart about it. But we have let parents go. So kind of a long answer to that question, but the state criteria is not clear. We've had things come through with staff that we know things about living here locally that have caused us to pause and at least evaluate this or assess where they're at. I know there's confidentiality around that, but I know some of this committee knows about some of those folks, past or even present, that the state gave certification to and cleared their background, but because we had local knowledge, we had some pause. And we've been fortunate that we've made good decisions around those things, I think, so far. So that helps in the process, but it's not a black and white thing. If you look in statute, it's not totally clear. You don't need a totally clean record, but there's a review process, and we just get results. And then we have our own vetting process.
So just to be clear with something that you said earlier, Maine Inside Out wouldn't lose any funding. They have kind of a brick and mortar studio or performance center of their own. And that's
They have
correct?
they have a small working space on Lisbon Street. Yes.
Okay.
I don't know about other sites if you want to share those from other areas, but I know of the one on Lisbon Street. I've been there. I've seen some things there. So. Yeah, I don't know if you have other physical sites.
Yeah, I mean, currently, we've invested our energy in Lewiston, not just the schools, but the entire community. So we did start with our brick and mortar site here in Lewiston, and that was very intentionally chosen, as was stated, because this is the community where so many young people have come from and then are going back to. We do have a presence in Portland. We share an office there with Double House Arts, so it's another arts collective that serves an underserved community. And we are looking forward to hopefully having a brick and mortar site there at some point, as well as other communities. But Lewiston has the brick and mortar site currently because it is an area that we're really committed to.
So I guess just finally, I want to be clear that I think the work that you're doing is great. And you know, it's awesome that you have that in this community for the youth that need it. And the community members that need it. I can't get past the feeling. I'm a parent of kids in the school, and I didn't know this was going on when my kids were there. And so the transparency piece for me is huge. And I really feel like this is a great program, but I don't think it should be happening during school hours in Lewiston Public Schools.
Sorry, remember Whitlow, I was distracted by the toddler.
Yeah, I think the concern that I see is that when there's a performance taking place at the middle school, some people that have either gone through the program or members of the community have been invited in that might have a colorful past. And that seems like that was the scenario with the gentleman who committed the murders. That's correct. So is there a way where we can say we don't invite certain people from the community? They can come if they want, but we're not going aggressively inviting people into the school, because you can't just close down a school. Would that take away some liability? I don't know, but that's my thought process. And I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts on that same thing.
Counselor Scott, sorry.
Thank you. So I guess I would just ask, do you have a stage and a place to perform a play at your brick and mortar facility? Like it's at the middle school?
I mean, the space itself is relatively small. We do open mics there, but it's not the kind of space that would necessarily be large enough to do that. I mean, we have a lot of organizations throughout the city that really want to host our performances. I think, definitely the reason that we have performed in the middle schools because the young people are coming from the middle school and wanting to perform for their parents and for their families and for their peers. So, would it be out of the question for us to find a different space? It wouldn't be out of the question. I think our thinking around it in terms of having the performance there is because those young people want to be able to engage what they see as their community.
Okay. Thank you. So after our conversation, when you all came to visit us, and I do want to say that we are okay. I mean, they're here now. That was an executive session. Generally, we don't discuss things that were in executive session because of legal matters. But we're having that discussion tonight. So one of the things that was discussed was the fact that this particular person did not work specifically with the students. He was in the audience, was what we were told. So I'm going to ask the question, and I understand the fear too, because I got grandkids in the school, still my kids in school. I understand the fear completely. And I understand where people emotionally went with this when it first happened, because, excuse my language, it's scary as hell to think that that was there, right? Now, we have a performance at the school by any drama club or any performance by any student activity club, whatever it is at any school. We do not know, and this is a fact, if a father, a mother, an uncle, a grandfather, a nephew, or anybody that is related to one of those kids, the next day is going to commit domestic violence and murder somebody, is going to do an act of violence or anything like that. We cannot vet those people for everything. So I think that that's part of what we have to consider when we're looking at this. Again, I understand the fear, but how do we stop all of that from happening? We can't. I mean, unless we're going to put our kids in a bubble and we're not going to have any public coming to any event, I don't know how we stop that. How do we stop some of the fights that happen at the football game after the game between people that are upset with each other, or a parent that gets crazy with a coach and beats him up? Like I just saw on TV another day, again, a coach in the country that got beat up for nothing because a parent wasn't happy. How do we stop that? And our kids are witnessing those things. Unless our kids are living in a bubble, I don't know how we stop that. So that being said, and I too I think there's great value in the work that you do. We have many conversations happening right now, happened in the past, about our kids and what our kids are doing, and maybe some activities that we don't want our kids to do. How are we going to control this? How are we going to stop the fights after school? How are we going to stop the situations? How do we stop the kids from getting up in a car and going to a neighborhood and wreaking havoc? How do we do all of these things? Well, one of the ways that we do those things is by looking outside the box at all the different programs that are available to help these kids. And unfortunately, not all children have the assets or the parents or the guidance to guide them through those things. And if we have something in one of our schools, particularly when it comes to middle school students and high school students who are struggling, some of them drastically, that they can find a way to get that guidance through a program like this, even if it's only 5 or 6 of them, that's maybe 5 or 6 what we help that's going to stop them from doing worse in the future. This is very difficult. It really is, because I think about, we got one community letter. I believe we all got that. That's the only one that I saw from a specific community member reaching out and saying that they did not want this to be in our schools. There's been some other conversations about folks being very concerned, and I've heard those conversations. But there's not been a lot of talk. And I feel like for us to make this decision, I do not want to hurt those kids that are already involved at the same time and already involved in this and hurt the program. So how do we look at this? Is it only after school? Let's talk about when exactly this is happening and the involvement of those kids happening. I mean, when we talk about having accountability, we did talk about your MOU, I'm sorry, excuse me. And there were changes made in some of the language that had been provided in the past, and you've elaborated on that language so that I remember Member Bowden brought up specifically that she felt that it was important that parents knew that these were folks that were incarcerated and what the background was, right? Because that wasn't necessarily clarified in some of the original stuff. And that is now in that information is now going to be available. Is that correct?
So I provided some edits for potential edits. I still think something as significant as this matter, I would love to bring it to either a subgroup of this committee to look at it if any direction is approved, and to finalize language. But there was a concern that like a permission slip or an information flyer did not disclose that there are people part of the program that have been incarcerated in the past, and also didn't talk about their training or how they're vetted through the program. So some of those items were things that be included. But again, wasn't intended as a final draft, but just wanted to at least inform the conversation if that's what the committee chose.
Okay, so let me just get, if I may have a little clarity on that. So the red highlighted language that was put in here, you added that language. So that's not officially in there yet.
Correct.
Okay.
I've not moved forward with any of that without the committee's input.
And has MIO looked at this language and had any conversation with you on that language?
I didn't send them the draft. I thought that was best with you first. But I did share that it was my intention to talk about the pieces that you had asked about, or the committee had asked about.
So I guess I personally would feel more comfortable to ensure that we have all of this language in place before we make an official vote on everything. And we're all comfortable with the way that's going to move forward. Exact understanding of where the performances are going to be, what times is their afternoon, and all of that. I feel I need a little more before I can just vote yes or no on this tonight. That's where I'm feeling.
I think it's also important, following up on some of what you said, to clarify some things, because I know there's been discussion in the community with some misinformation. This individual that was in the school and prompted all of this discussion was not in the school during the school day, not when all of our students were in the building, not interacting with any of our students. This was an audience member in the evening. And like you said, we can't control who shows up. I know that the Lewiston Middle School Community Little Theater has used the middle school stage for performances, and obviously we can't control who's in that audience. My daughter's dance group, when she was little, had their recitals there every year, and lots of other places do too. And those are also outside of school hours, and we don't know who's in the audience at something like that. But I think it's important to reiterate that the individual that everybody is concerned about was not in the schools during the school day and was not interacting with our students directly. Member Bowden?
I do want to add, though, that there was some clarification that he was an invited member by the Maine Inside Out because he's a part of the Maine Inside Out. So yes, there was some control over who was going to be at that show because he was invited there. And that's scary. It is very scary. And our job as school committee members is to look out for every single student in Lewiston Public Schools and their safety and well-being. And, you know, knowing that somebody of that caliber was invited in as an audience member is still something that just does not sit well with me.
And at the time that he was invited in, he wasn't at that caliber. He wasn't like they went out and said, hey, you're a murderer, come in and hang out with these kids. It was something that happened after the fact. So there's no way of predicting anyone that we invite in. Anyone in this room could go out and murder someone tomorrow, and we have no way of predicting that. Member Hurd?
Thank you. So when do you guys get together? Is it during the school day? Is it after school? Is it in the morning? Like, can you just give us a rough idea of like your schedule and how that all works?
Yeah, for sure. So typically we've met with our student groups. It's changed each session based on the school schedule changing. But the last two, I think, have been kind of in the afternoon, like last period or second to last period. This past spring, we would meet with two groups back to back. And our team would gather at our site on Lisbon Street, usually an hour and a half before, you know, prep. We'd make our agenda together. We'd discuss what happened at the last workshop, anything that had come up, you know, ideas, come in, do the group, and then go back to our site, have a meal and debrief together, plan for the next workshop. So there's built in like times to gather as a team, check in, plan, go to the school, come back, debrief. And that's a part of our rhythm of working with students. Could I respond to some other? Okay. Yeah, I would just say, yeah, Marcel was invited to come see the show. And I think in some way, like having him, like, we also have a process that's similar to how we prepare to go into the school. Anytime we prepare to do a performance or gather our community together, which does involve like checking in with everybody and seeing where they're at. Again, we have like a long, like over a decade worth of gathering people who are either incarcerated or have histories of being incarcerated to do performances in schools and venues across the state. And have had people show up where we have to say, actually, no, you can't come to this right now, or this wouldn't be safe for you to come to this. Like a lot of experience and history of holding the container with, often pretty large groups of people. And a similar process was in place for that performance of checking in with everyone who we did invite, knowing they were there, having a large staff team there to check in on what was happening. So it's not like an invite went out, like get yourself there, we'll see you at the door, come. It's anytime we gather, it's very intentional. And we have like safety protocols in place that we've learned, over years of doing this work inside prisons and, all across the state and community settings. So just wanted to say that. And then as far as, sorry, it's just as far as we don't do background checks because of the nature of who we work with and who we hire. And there's a tremendous amount of people who have really valuable experience in our communities, especially in the Lewiston community, who do have backgrounds. And we think it's really important that they have opportunities for growth, development, leadership, mentorship, connection with students, many of whom are young people in their community who they know, or relatives. So we don't do background checks, but we do have a very intensive hiring process that really looks at people's participation and engagement in our work over years. I mean, the Lewiston facilitation team is myself, it's Bashir, and it's Tyler. I mean, that's us. We're the people going into the school during the school day and working with students. And we've all known each other since 2017, 2018, and have worked together in various capacities and have built, strong relationships with each other. So just wanted to say that as well.
Yes, member Heard.
Thank you. So I agree with Linda. I don't feel comfortable voting yes or no unless we have something concrete, because we could vote yes and then something could change and then there's nothing we can do going forward because somebody somewhere decided to change something without all of us knowing. I don't know if I feel, I know I don't feel comfortable with it being 2 less periods of the day. If we continue to move forward and if this is something that we decide to do, I would rather operate more of like our after school programming or the Boys and Girls Club or something in that nature, instead of during school time, because school time is for school. So we're learning, we're engaging with our peers, like those types of things. So I just to put it out there, I don't feel comfortable unless we have something concrete in front of us that we're actually voting yes or no on.
Just a piece on the MOU and or permission slip language. We have essentially full control of that as the host. And so we can go back with language. And if it's not agreed to, then we have more work to do kind of approach. So I'm happy to do more work with the language. And I think there's some further edits that could be on there that Member Eames had mentioned. So I'm fine with that if that's the next step, just so everybody knows. But I do think we're in the driver's seat of that language for sure.
So in theory, we could vote on it tonight with the caveat that it's approved pending the approval of the language, and so that we could move forward and then you could handle the rest with the language, sorting that out.
Yeah, I would be fine with that directive if that's what the committee wants to do, and I'm fine with bringing things back if that's what you'd like. I think it's been made pretty clear, at least to me, about what language you were expecting to see in there for clarity. But again, we could also bring it back.
Member Beaupont, did you have your hand up? No, okay. Member Eames?
I am of the opinion that we should allow this to happen, but I'm not happy with the language of the MOU. So mainly because it's not clear. Not that it's not the right spirit, just that I don't think it's expressed in a way that's very clear yet. But so I would recommend that we approve the principle and then set up a subcommittee or a set of people to oversee the creation of an MOU. Whether that has to come back to us is a different question. I don't think it would have to, but if the subcommittee approves it, but maybe there's a precedent for that. Is there a time crunch? So it has to be approved by a certain time for this to happen? Because school's already started.
Yeah, I think if we're going to do things relative to during school, there is a time sensitivity.
Yeah.
If it's not to be during school, I mean, I think they still have a time sensitivity of work that they're trying to do. I don't want to be mindful of that. Again, I really think the committee's in the driver's seat as far as how this
Our
goes.
next meeting is the 25th.
Yes.
Is that too late for this?
I don't think anything's too late as long as we're doing the work.
So can I make no, we need to hear from the public. Yeah, never mind.
Technically did you want to speak? Sorry. Member Damon. Oh, I thought you were pointing to me because you wanted to alert me to Member Beaupont. Okay, I misunderstood your hand signal.
No, I'm sorry about that. Confusing. As everyone will recall, I was very much opposed to this. I remain very much opposed to this. We should not be taking students out of the classroom. There's such limited class time currently for a lot of these kids. If this is going to be any type of a program, to me, it has to be extracurricular. It has to be after hours. And I'm not convinced that other than the performance itself, that any of this should be done within the school buildings. The whole thing just really strikes me as really something that we as a committee should not be supporting and promoting. I worry about, I have grandkids that are not in this particular school district, but they're in school in their same vulnerability. And I would worry that when we're talking about what this particular group, that there is an opportunity for grooming that we need to make sure that we're not providing the venue and the opportunity for that. This thing doesn't belong in the Lewiston schools. The performance maybe can happen in that venue if there's nothing else available. But as far as I'm concerned, nothing they've proposed here has changed my opinion. I don't think that the way they present it to parents is clear at all that what their mission is. And I think that this does more for them than it does for the kids. And I think that the whole thing is fraught with opportunity that I'm not willing to expose our kids to. And whatever happens here is going to have to be really some sea change. But my vote is going to be absolutely no. And I would make a motion to table this for the moment until we can see some sort of the venue that the MOU change, if that's what people want to do. But as far as I'm concerned, it's going to be a no vote regardless. That's where I'm at, and I don't tend to change that. So my motion right at the moment would be to table this.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion, Member Medina?
So first I want to say, I'm respectful of everybody's views and opinions. I mean, we're all allowed to have that. But I would have to respectfully disagree and say that I do not think that this is grooming. I can understand if we have to move this to maybe after school, but this is real life situations. People go through this stuff all the time. Kids are exposed to more on TikTok, online. Listen to the music that kids listen to. Some kids don't have an outlet. I know a kid personally, one of my son's friends, who went through this program, and he said it changed him. He doesn't get into trouble anymore. If you guys have read the emails that were sent to us, there are parents, teachers, community members that have said, you know what, I have seen there was kids in school that weren't talking, they were getting into trouble, they were just completely disconnected. And with this program, they found their voice. If we're going to judge people for doing things in the past that got them in trouble, guess what? Then judge me too, because I did things that weren't so great when I was young. But guess what? I grew up and I learned. That's why I'm in this position to try to make a difference with my voice and my lived experience and those of the people that were around me. Also, previously, I worked at a program. It was called Take Two. We work with at-risk youth. Statistics show that kids that are exposed or that are in poverty or that have parents that are incarcerated are more than likely to repeat that cycle. And I feel like this is a way for kids to find their voice and find somebody that actually listens and maybe cares. So I just want to leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the table and a second. I think that we need to vote on that before we go to the public procedurally. And we need to do a roll call vote because yes, Member Scott, Counselor Scott.
I'd like to ask a procedural question. If we vote to table it and we table it, do we still go to public or should we? Because I'm not sure if that's procedurally the right way to do that.
I don't understand what we're tabling for.
If we're tabling it, then we're tabling it to stop the discussion right now and wait until we have further information and further clarification on some of the things that we've brought up. And that would be what Member Damon said, what Member Bowden said, what all of us have said, right? And so if we're tabling it, then the discussion's done. It's tabled, it's done. We vote on it, it's done until we get further clarification.
And we're denying the public opportunity to speak on it as well. It's written in the agenda as to receive and potentially vote. So regardless of the tabling, if we wanted to put it off until our next meeting where we could get more firm language, we can do that without tabling it. Tabling it just sets it off indefinitely without a necessary end date. And that Member Damon, with all due respect, has already said his vote isn't going to change either way. So it doesn't matter if we vote on it tonight or 6 months from now, his vote is going to be the same. So I'm not sure.
From now, it won't.
It won't be. I'm not sure what the purpose of tabling it is. If we just want to firm up the language, we can just say we're going to firm up the language and bring it back on the next agenda.
So just for clarification's sake again, and if I may continue, if something has already been, a motion's been made to table, a second has been made, whether the chair thinks it's appropriate for it to be tabled or not, a motion has been made and a second has been made, and that's procedurally by Robert's rules, what we should be doing. So we honestly, that's the decision that has to be made. I understand that there is public here, but we have protocols and procedures that we have in place, and Robert's rules is that procedure, and a motion has been made, a second has been made. I honestly, that's
We
the way
still
I.
have discussion. We still have discussion amongst us before it goes to vote, though, after a motion and a second.
No, it's a motion to table. It is pretty much, that's it. That goes to vote.
Are you prepared to vote?
I'm prepared to vote yes.
Okay.
I'm voting yes to table.
Ward 6,
Yes to table.
Ward 5,
If this is for more clarification, then make sure that we're all on the same page, then I will vote yes to table, but I support you guys, just know that.
Ward 4,
No.
Ward 3,
No.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
no, and Ward 7.
Yes.
5-3 is the final vote, and that's tabled. Indefinitely, right? That doesn't mean it's gonna come back. When something is tabled, that's what I was trying to share in the period of,
Okay, then I misunderstood.
that's all right. Yeah, I understood what you meant, Ashley, yes.
I wish they would have told me that, because I definitely remember.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have a lot going on.
That's okay.
A lot.
Typically asked, yeah, the question before she agreed to table it. If as long as it.
Your mic's not on.
She had asked the question that she actually stated that as long as it was coming back, she would vote yes.
So there's an
And-
option to table something to a specific date or to just table it. And what the motion was to just table it. Those are two different things. Per
Okay,
Robert's
so
rules.
Then I misunderstood. I mean, I don't know what I can do now, but I definitely thought we were gonna.
It wouldn't change the vote. It wouldn't change the outcome. But I understand what you're.
I apologize. I apologize.
Because it was 5-3. So it would have been 4, yeah. Okay.
It's nine of us, so.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Nine.
6-3. It was 6-3. Right. Agenda item number 8 is to receive and potentially vote on information as a follow-up to energy cost savings conversation with an opportunity to enter into an agreement with an energy provider. Thank you for attending tonight. What?
Can we start?
Yes.
So the next item goes back to some historical conversations. We've in the past, we're presented with an opportunity through, I think the name of the company is Revision. That particular contract language wasn't something that we were fully comfortable with. But the committee, while they didn't decide to go with that plan, which was more of a 20-year mortgage commitment. So you help pay the mortgage essentially on a solar installation elsewhere. And then you get credit rewards back by way of credits that are issued by way of the energy being created by the solar panels. And so that was something that I'll at least speak for myself. I struggle with 20-year commitments. I'm saying that right up front. I think a lot can change in a 20-year window. But that initial proposal a while back led to conversation that we had here that we should continue to seek out and hear other proposals if they come up. So following that work, our business office team put together just communications, and as you know, we worked with different vendors on different things to help with language that we think will be successful. And so an RFP was generated, and this was last November, I believe, and we had no takers. Nobody got back to us in any way, shape, or form. But we were contacted by this company, USource, recently. They have a process in place where there's solar panels already creating credits. And because of the way the partnerships work with Net Credit Energy, they presented us with an opportunity to go into a contract with them if we chose. And if we did, as you can see in the packet in the notes, it's a 15% discount on utility bills up to the threshold that we agree to. And there's some metrics in this that we don't want to overcommit to certain energy levels, because if we don't reach it, we don't get it, that kind of thing. But these are based on estimates. So it could be around $84,000 in year one. And if that is real and that happens, that would be savings that we would see here. The estimated, keyword estimated, is approaching $1.7 million over a 20-year window. I did reach out to the company to say, can you do a higher percentage? Can you do something different? Talking to other districts, there's a number of districts that have bought into these kinds of programs to save some funds. But it hasn't been something that we've decided to do to date. There's some other criteria that exists. You know, if we want out, they look for a replacement. If they find a replacement, we can opt back. Sorry, they find someone, we can be out of it, but a lot of ifs to that period. So again, this is just, it's an opportunity to do some things incentive wise. And I think that a number of people on the committee have some thoughts and opinions around that, but I know, again, as your superintendent, just being what I am, I have reservations about 20-year agreements, especially as you talk about the energy sector that could change greatly. That said, I do think it's my responsibility to bring things like this to you, because there is a cost savings that could be realized if it's something you choose to move forward with. They're looking to expedite this because we're kind of the last hole that they need to fill for this project. It works out good for them if we move on this. I told them I'd bring it to the committee, but I also knew that we've had this conversation about a similar type project, and there was some concerns. So here I am with the 15% piece. They are real savings. We've talked to the districts that have done this, and they are real savings. But again, they're 20-year commitments, and my guess is, or not just my guess, but without getting into names, because I don't want to speak poorly about others, some other districts that have entered some agreements have wished the rates today were available to them when they did it a while back. And so you always have that ebb and flow of things. I did want to bring it to you. It also makes me question, you know, as far as things go, is there a better deal out there? I don't know. Who has the time to investigate better deals out there full time? I don't know. These are real savings. And if I brought you an $85,000 cut, you'd be interested. And this is an 84 and change $1,000 proposal on the annual basis. Again, estimated if that lasts the 20 years, we'll see what that cost is. It is based on the net energy credits, so the rates can fluctuate. Another piece of this that had me concerned in the past, but it feels more secure today than it did a year or two ago, was really around the annual budget. And these net energy credits are tied to federal and state policy decision-making. If that shifts drastically, the energy credits could also shift. The reason I felt like, okay, I'll actually bring this one and not just say this is not for us. This doesn't have the mortgage component. This is not asking for us to pay for the solar energy. It's asking for us to commit to a usage. And through that usage, we get 15% credit. So essentially we're getting into a discounted purchase of energy that we commit to instead of paying for a solar farm elsewhere. But this is a business strategy so that they make money. And we're just putting it before you because it could save funds.
Member Eames?
I read it, but I it didn't stick. Is the 15% on a fixed rate? So we know, we can predict it'll be 84,000 and it'll add up to 1680, or is it on a variable rate, 15% on whatever the rate happens to be? So it could be much greater or it could be smaller.
So I would say there's two variables. One is the Public Utilities Commission establishes the rate. They do that on a cycle. So when they establish that rate, that is the rate, and that's variable. But they,
For how long? For a year?
I think it's an annual cycle. Bill's kind of giving me the nod there. No, it's not every 20 years. So it's essentially the Public Utilities Commission next year could shift that rate up, down, leave it the same. But I also think from an allocation perspective, you could have down during certain administrations, up during others. It could vary greatly. The federal government, as you know, has put forth a lot of funds and programming towards energy efficiency. So there's some out there that felt like this could stick longer than maybe in the past. I was real worried about the last election, thinking when we talked about this prior, it was before the recent governor election. And I was concerned that if we had elections go certain ways, that this is the kind of program that could be squeezed, or if not almost eliminated, which would, that's variable number two for me, is if the political climate squeezes the allocations, public utilities is going to follow suit. So variable on two different levels.
So this prediction of this number prediction is very much, I don't know if it's wishful thinking or ballpark. I don't know which.
It came from a sales rep. So I would say it's wishful thinking. And I would guess that that's on the high end. I would be shocked if we exceeded that in savings. I did ask the question of, if we enter into this agreement, would it prevent us from entering into others based on usage or other models that might come in the future we don't even know about? And they said no. But with the no, it is based on a percentage of our usage. So what we did is we gathered all the information from our energy usage from our actual billing, and we used all the schools except for the high school, so that we would never exceed it, because we don't want to exceed it. Then we wouldn't get our money back the way this says. But if someone came along and said, we'll match that, we don't have the usage to match that to get it twice. So there's a balance there.
Member Heard. Thank you. Bill, I'm just going to ask you to come to the podium because I have a lot of questions. Sorry, you knew this was coming. Sorry. So a lot of this, like Member Eames says, does go over my head, but thankfully I have a phone a friend at home who understands this a little more in depth than I do. And so these are some questions that I will be asking. So I'm going to go through the PowerPoint if that's easier for you, or the presentation. And I just wrote some things down on some of the bullet points if that's easier for you. So it says that USource met with Lewiston to determine their objective and needs for a community solar placement. Who determined what we needed? Was it USource? Was it our team? Was it an outside? Was it, who determined that?
Okay, so USource, kind of just to take you on the history of that, about a little over a year ago, our controller had said, you know, there's these energy tax credits. We should be looking at this because it's an opportunity. And school districts had done some work with USource. So we contacted USource. What they did is they put together the RFP. They did help us figure out, you know, what kind of credits and things that we would need, probably based on metrics that they have. And then we issued the RFP, which got no responses. And so then it was about a week and a half ago, USource just contacted us out of the blue and said, hey, we've got a up and running company that's looking for somebody to join, you know, so what are your thoughts? So we've really been digging in and trying to figure out, okay, is this going to be the right thing for us? And obviously with these things, and we've worked even with Drummond Woodsum just to get some kind of beginning legal advice that, you know, yeah, what you see 15% is usually where we're at now. And there is some time sensitivity as far as signing on with this. So that's why it's before you today. Not to get off the point. I just got to tell a little of the story. All right.
Okay, so one of my big concerns is that USource did our RFP. Why are we not doing our own RFPs and then looking for these companies? So and I kind of bring this back a little bit to a previous project that we did with Johnson Control. Like they wrote the grant, they did this, they did that. Like,
So
and I'm okay.
Johnson Control didn't write they wrote the grant, but they
But
didn't
not the
write an RFP. We did a
Okay.
joint thing with the city. Sometimes we will write our RFPs when we get into technical things. Sometimes we reach out to some type of expert and have them help us put the RFP together. And this particular RFP came at no cost. It was kind of what we viewed as a low risk, but something that we know is out there for credits and can save our energy bill. So we felt like, hey, we've got an obligation to at least start exploring
Okay.
this. So that's how the relationship with
Gotcha.
U-Source came about.
Gotcha. So my concern with that a little bit is that, let's say I'm asking for your business and you ask me to write an RFP, I'm going to write the RFP in my favor. So I'm going to say, we need to use this product and this contractor and this and this and that, and then send it out. But then maybe no other businesses qualify because they don't use that certain product, or they don't use a certain contractor, they don't use those certain things. So my only concern with having actual companies that are looking for our business writing RFPs is that they're going to write it in their favor, not necessarily in the favor of what we're looking for. Because it looks like they didn't receive any offers, right, from anybody else.
No, and kind of going into that RFP, they actually said, we don't know where we're going to go, because think back to when solar really started to come off and there was a lot more offers. I think even 18 to 20% was more of what you were getting kind of in the beginning of this. And then, so we are kind of, I believe, and kind of what I've seen is we're a little late to the game with this RFP process and getting in with U-Source or any company to write an RFP for us, or if we wrote our own RFP.
Okay. So the next question is, why are we going with community solar when we have space for rooftop solar? Rooftop solar is like a 5-year ROI instead of a community solar. So what are our options there? Did we look into that?
Our options for rooftop solar?
Or any of our buildings? Connor, obviously not Dingley, but
Yeah,
like,
so from an engineering perspective, what we've been told is our buildings can't hold rooftop equipment. And so doing rooftop solar on our own buildings, they're not built for that, if you will.
Okay.
Between snow load and the load of the equipment, it can't hold it. We did talk about this extensively at the facilities committee, and again, I felt like the direction from the committee, this was last November, so you're talking close to a year ago, that you wanted us to continue to just see what you can get for expertise and put it back out there. So we did. There were no responses to the RFP, and it's been almost 12 months, or it's been 9 months. And so it's not like we put it out and then as soon as the window closed, U-Source called us up and said, hey, I had just a thing for the plan that we wrote. This has been a long time coming, and actually some of the RFP language that was in around it, and I don't know if you saw something that I missed. We're also looking for these other build projects to see if we could get a little more without being such a long commitment, and looking at that ROI piece. So U-Source, I think it can be said that any organization could build an RFP that best suit itself. I'm not as fully versed in, solar net energy credits and the changing litigation and legislation around it to know, will it stay, will it go, what the PUC will do. But there are those in the field who do this kind of work. So using someone that does know what they're doing to put out an RFP, which is an open invite to anybody who wants to submit. We've even had companies reach out to us for other RFPs that say, are you sure you want to do it that way? Because we could offer up a service that does it this way and it might save you even more money. We actually talked about that extensively about the high school controls position. So we actually got RFP input back that had differing information that wasn't even really what we targeted. So it was out there publicly. I think really what happened is there's a limited supply and they're just trying to get these projects done and they don't have the contractors and the supplies to do them. And it's starting to come back around. Things getting caught up. I don't want to throw Bill under a bus in that we didn't just pick someone and run with it and then just call them up and say, hey, we haven't heard from anyone. You want to do it? It was something that was out there for over a year, about a year.
And it's interesting you're saying the stuff in the rooftops having the 5-year ROI. I wouldn't say the door's completely closed on that type of stuff too, because we do have another building and the high school, but there are engineering concerns. There are all of these, other concerns. The fact that we're going to be putting a new roof on the high school, do we then want to put on solar panels? And I'll be honest with you, that when you're dealing with all of these energy things, it's as clear as mud oftentimes as far as what you're getting, because you often are talking to a person that's in sales. So it sometimes kind of shades the conversations, but none of those are off the table. Again, this was something that kind of Adam sitting there, and I'm not throwing Adam under the bus because he was sitting there, kind of like he looks at our budget and looks at like what we things we face and knows that we have colleagues in other areas that are doing things like this. And it's like, this to me kind of becomes a no-brainer win-win, because you're just saving money on particular things. So
Sure.
that's why we went down that road.
Yep. So this is kind of like a lump question, like, it says estimated total savings over a 20-year contract. So what happens to the infrastructure after 20 years? And also too, it says Lewiston can exit sooner if a replacement is found, but USource said they didn't receive any offers. So who are we replacing?
So USource didn't receive any offers. This is back in January.
Okay.
Okay, when the RFP was up.
Yep.
Fast forward a week and a half ago, excuse me, USource called us and said, hey, we have a company that has a solar field all built, ready to go. If you want in on this, this is the terms of the deal. And if you sign it, it's immediate savings. So that is something that's kind of enticing, because you're not waiting. You're not waiting for things to be built. You're not waiting for the process to happen. This is pretty much, this is where we're going to go.
Right. So yeah, the 20-year thing is a concern for me. I mean, look at stuff that you've had for 20 years. Is it still working? Is it in still good working condition? Like, what are the costs for replacement, for repair? What happens at the end of that 20 years? Like, are we going to be responsible for dismantling all of that? Can't really recycle, but take care of it. And so like, those are some questions for me. And is this strictly for LPS? So it says community solar credits will be applied to Lewiston's electricity bill. Is it Lewiston as in a city, or
No,
LPS?
it's Lewiston Public Schools. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not only Lewiston benefiting from this solar field.
Okay. I think that's really all I had.
And I will say that part of this is tonight being for you, because we have engaged Drummond Woodson, and the reason we engaged them was because of their expertise, because these came onto the scene a couple years ago for schools, and a bunch of schools kind of got together and they hired Drummond Woodson. So Drummond Woodson holds the kind of library of understanding of all these contracts and whether they make sense and whatnot. So we've engaged them. Their first initial look at the contract was there was no red flags. However, they do have some recommendations, for us to go with that. So it's really negotiating a contract. And I mean, we could end up walking away and saying, we're not going to do this contract.
Right. I just have to say, from like a personal point of view, we all know that budget season that's coming up next year is going to be the toughest one that we have ever seen. And I know that I can't afford to pay any more taxes, because I might talk to a member voting about this today. We're creeping up close to $10,000 in property taxes. And in Lewiston, Maine, I just cannot justify that. So it's a concern for me as what this is going to cost and what it's going to look like for our taxpayers, because there are people who can't afford anymore. So I push you to go and say, I want your best in final. Like, if you're coming to me saying 15, I want 20. Like,
do you know, Jake? Because it's always that particular thing. And it's like, you know what? You email them.
Yeah. So that's all I'm looking for. And I hope that
saying.
I'm anxiously looking forward to some RFPs for our janitorial supplies and our paper and our school supplies and stuff like that.
I can update you on something offline about that.
Can I just jump in real quick? A couple of things. One, some of what I heard makes me feel like you think we're trying to put in a solar farm, and we're not. This is to engage in agreement for an existing farm. I forget what they say, where maybe Gorham.
Yeah.
And we would essentially be agreeing to just use a portion of that power with that net energy credit return. And that too, when you say, if they say 15, you want 20, Bill knows, as he was copied on that very communication, was, I need to know what else you can do. And I'd like to see 20 or 22%. So that conversation's already happened. We landed at 15. But I also gave him pretty clear communication that I was going to walk into this committee with reservations about this. Because I agree. I think if a company can grab 85% of that credit and that conversation back and forth, we can do better than 15. But I also don't want to come here and say, we still need that $85,000 for electrical because we passed on that offer.
We don't have to install any new equipment or change any infrastructure on our end
No,
to receive all this power or credit or however that works.
No, this is an agreement. The way it works for them is they facilitate these pieces and maintain the solar array. And what happens for us is we earn the credits. They keep a chunk of the credit. We get savings. That's how this plays out. And then the chunk that they get, they make money. And they can fix solar arrays if they go down. So they're making sure they still produce what they need to reach the net energy credit goals. That's the way I read it. I don't work for them, but that's my understanding. And I just thought the 85% is extremely high for them to get. But it was also made clear to me that if they have a natural disaster event, tornado, a small spin up, which we can have in Maine, and a tree lands on 9 panels and takes it down, it limits its ability to generate electricity, and they'll have to swap them out, things like that. So that they pay for that, not us.
and I can check on this, but I believe it is, if they don't make electricity, then we don't buy electricity from them. We would just pay our regular CMP bill. We would be purchasing those credits and then at 85%, and then we would, or I might have this backwards, 100%, and then we would only be paying like 85% of the CMP, so we'd be getting that 15% reduction.
Sorry, we don't have to pay for any like maintenance or anything of the farm.
No.
Nothing.
If something happens, if it gets damaged,
We're just
To
saying
take
that
it
we'll
down,
buy the
nothing.
electricity from them.
And I'm glad you made that point, Member, because that is the fundamental difference between this and the last one. The last one was we have a mortgage bill. And if it goes down, what happens? And it's like, well, you agreed to this mortgage bill. And I said, well, I'm not doing that. So that was one of the big differences between that and this. Yeah.
Good question, good questions.
Any further discussion? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Moved by member Damon. Is there a second? Oh. Sorry. Second by member Scott.
Public comment.
Now that.
proposal.
Paul.
Member Bopola.
I'm sorry, could you reread the motion, please?
The motion would be to go ahead and approve the memorandum that Jake got from USource to receive a 15% discount on the electrical use of most of the buildings at Lewiston Public Schools. And so we would receive the 15% discount. It would save in roughly $85,000 a year on the light bill going forward. And it's a 20-year agreement, but it can be canceled.
Thank you very much, Bruce.
Motion would be to enter into the agreement with the energy provider as
Yes.
described.
Yes. Yep.
And member Scott seconded that. Any further discussion? Member Scott? I mean, roll call vote, sorry. Oh, can we do that? Well, yes. Is there any public comment on this? Right.
Good evening, Tim Gallant. I'm a resident of Lewiston. I guess first question would be, is 84,000 saving on what's the big number? 1.4 million, 1 point.
So it's
84,000 in savings on our annual CMP bill.
Right. So what do you pay annually for CMP?
I'd have to.
I'm just, what percentage, if we're gonna say,
So 50, that actually equals about 15%.
so that would be
Yeah.
15% of what we pay.
Just for clarification, we generally don't engage in a question and answer back and forth. It's just
Yep.
public comment.
Okay.
You can ask your questions and then the superintendent will follow up with you.
But you're gonna already voted. Superintendent, have you guys had an energy audit?
Yeah, I'll take down your questions so I can provide answers.
Yeah, did you have an energy audit? Have you done one? Background, buildings and grounds, transportation director, school district, a little smaller than this, 5 years. So I'm pretty familiar with energy savings and things in that nature. So that's where my question would come from. If we've had an energy, 84,000 on a big number is not a very big number. You know, you could turn off, there's lights on the hall over here that are on that's not being used. There are a lot of things that people can do to reduce a number. So that's part of my curiosity question. And so I'll have to get an answer later. I guess my next question would be is, if we're going to go forth with this, what happens if they go under? We go back to the standard offer, correct, CMP? If it happens to be higher, what's?
So this has no bearing on our standard offer or contracted agreement, which for us is typically around the 5 or 7 year range.
Right.
It does differ from residential.
So, because you're business, technical business model. All right, that's, I was just curious to see whether, if we've done anything in the school system to save energy, because 84,000 is really a small number based on about $1 million a year.
So if I may, just, I have to be mindful of just our protocols of not just doing Q&A with everyone. So I do think it's important to mention a couple things before there's a vote, if that's okay, Chair Parks. So we've done a series of energy audits, as the committee knows, and the facilities committee has seen. And we have identified a number of ways in which we could find some savings. A big one that we did not pursue was to the tune of a $7 million agreement. We were not comfortable with that. So there have been other things that we've looked at. And as far as our overall cost of electricity, we'd have to get that number and blend the schools. We did have that number recently, but I want to make sure that it's accurate. So just as a component of this piece is it is a savings. It does have that 20-year agreement. And there were no other indicators. And I could check the legal language if the committee's directing us to enter into this agreement. Certainly, I'm going to review all of the legal language and would not sign it if it did not meet what I think you're looking for.
560,000.
Yeah, I remember Damon was thinking it was around 560,000. I know it's a number we've talked about before, but I have numbers in my head every day, and that one I don't recall off the top of my head.
Thank you. Are we ready to vote? Member Scott,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 4, Ward 3,
20 years is too long, no.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
no, Ward 7.
Yes.
6-2, the vote passes. Agenda item number 9. I don't need to now. Did anyone need to take a quick 5-minute break before we go on, or? Yes, okay, we'll be in recess for 5 minutes. Agenda item number 9, the school committee is back in session at 7:50. Agenda item number 9 is to review and potentially vote on the second read of the following policies listed on the agenda as A through O. Member Hurd.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the second reading of policies A through O.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? City council rep.
Thank you. I just want to comment to thank the policy committee for all of this work. I mean, seriously, this is a serious amount of policies you guys have been going through. And I think it's wonderful. It's stuff that hasn't been updated in a long time, and I just really appreciate it. So thank you.
And would you like to vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 1,
I wasn't here for the first reading, but I will support these. I've read them and I will support yes.
thank you. I vote yes. And Ward 7.
Yes.
Thank you. It's unanimous. Agenda item number 10 is to review and potentially vote on the first read of the following policies listed as A through L. Is there a motion? Member Hurd.
I would like to make a motion to approve the first reading of the following policies A through L.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call vote starting with Member Scott.
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
yes, Ward 7.
Yes.
Thank you. That's also unanimous. Agenda item number 11 is to review and potentially vote on the deletion of the following policies, A and B on the agenda. Member Hurd.
I'd like to make a motion to delete the following policies A through B.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, but can I just ask Karen a clarifying question? I just want to make sure that these policies are like a piece of another policy or a state law or something, and that's why they're being deleted.
Yes, they are both part of what we have to do by law for special ed services and meeting students' needs. So there's no need for them to be part of the policy because we follow the ruling of the law.
Wonderful. Then I will second that.
Thank you. Roll call vote beginning with Member Scott.
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
Ward 1,
Yes.
yes, Ward 7.
Yes.
And that is unanimous. Agenda item number 12 is report from the school committee chair. Sorry, let me get it open if I can. I had a question and a reminder. Reminder for school board members of the fall conference, the Maine School Board Association Fall Conference on October 26th and 27th. It's back to being in person after a few years of being remote. And it's actually a lot of fun. There's a lot of different breakout sessions that you can attend to learn, and you can pick whichever ones you want based on what you're interested in. There's like the arena, the auditorium is filled with all different kinds of vendors and different information, which is a lot of fun. And then at the end of the first day on Thursday, they do like a raffle drawing, and they give away like $100 gift certificates to LL Bean and all kinds of really cool things. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of information, and it's I would recommend anyone go to it if they're interested.
Does it cost anything to go?
Nope. Does it? I don't think it does it?
The state conference that I believe you're referencing does have a cost, but we do have, as usually we try to send at least one member as a delegate. So there's a cost,
I
but it's
was
not.
elected to something, but
You're
I'm
the
not sure.
delegate.
Yeah.
The
Yes.
delegate is
Just
something.
want to make
Yep.
sure.
Yes.
And that's what I'm delegated to.
To me, that's typically what's done, but I know the committee can just kind of pick and choose if they like.
Yeah, I didn't realize that there was a cost. I know several of us have gone in the past, and I didn't realize it must be something that the school department just covers, or.
Yeah, they just send us a bill.
Oh, okay.
But it's not a big cost. And it's in Augusta, so typically people will go up and back unless they're part of different committees that meet at night, so.
Yeah. Member Scott.
Thank you. So I was under the understanding that that cost was covered, and this could be from the past when I was on the committee before, that was part of the school committee cost in our budget line for people to attend that conference. So, and I would encourage anybody to attend that conference. So there are, like Chair Park said, There are classes that you can take that are geared specifically towards special education. There are ones that are on safety. They have vendors there that speak specifically about like locking down a room or stuff. I mean, everything that you can think of in respect to the schools and education and what's happening statewide, nationally, regionally. There, it's going to be discussed there. You have an opportunity to attend these meetings. You get a pamphlet that, or even a little booklet that actually tells you all the different times, and you can pick and choose which ones you want to visit the vendors. And then the delegate actually goes to a specified delegates room to discuss the specific pieces of legislation that is going to be discussed. And then as well as attend that, there's always a good dinner. I mean, the whole thing, it's a really great event. And if they're bringing it back now, I would encourage as many of you to go as you can. It's a good thing. What's the date again?
The 26th. 26th and 27th, I believe, of October. Trina. Yes, 26th and 27th of October at the Augusta Civic Center. Is it called the Augusta Civic Center anymore? It is. Okay. I had, this may be more appropriate for future agenda item, but I'll just do it during this chair update. If we could get a follow-up on what's going on with the vacant SEL coordinator position, that would be good. It's been vacant for a while and I'd like to see somebody in that role. And then the last part of my update, I just wanted to say that if I've done nothing else over the last 8 years in this role, it is to be to encourage a voice from our constituents and from the community, and to read Robert's Rules of Order. There are some protections in place in order to backtrack on what happened tonight, and I plan to pursue that. But I also wanted to say that I'm absolutely disgusted that we took any steps to silence our community that came out and gave their time to sit and wait patiently tonight. And I encourage everyone who was in attendance tonight and didn't get the opportunity to speak to come back to our next meeting and share what they were going to say tonight during the public comment session, because we should never be silencing our constituents. And that's the end of my update. Agenda item number 13 is a report from the chair, the superintendent.
So I have a few things I wanted to share, and I feel like there's many more just because of the nature of the fact that we just opened up schools and things are up and running. The first one and foremost, just want to share with all of you, but also publicly, that transportation has been a bigger hurdle this year than it has been in years past. There's a number of reasons for that, and I'm not looking to make any excuses. I just want to say to people that it is getting better, and I heard that in meetings late last week and also this morning with other teams, and so it is getting better. We're doing some things to try to get things back on track. I do want to just put in a plug too and a caveat that when we match the resources and our growing enrollments, it's a puzzle. And so I'm very thankful for the patience from people in the community, schools, students, parents. We had shifted to routes instead of bus numbers, which was a bit of a shift. Yeah, and it caused some confusion, and it was something that we believed we had a different strategy for, and the buses still had numbers showing. We thought that they might not, and so it's something that will get taken care of. I do think once it's established, it'd be better. Where the run works instead of the bus number is when we have something go down, whether it's a bus mechanically or we lose a driver or someone's out sick that day, what have you. It allows us to reappropriate behind the scenes the runs themselves, and so people can maintain those runs. So again, sorry about the confusion. Those are some pieces that we're working through now. We've also had some things that were challenging with I want to say this really nice. So we have some working professionals that drive our buses who are like, they know their layout and they know some of the kids. And so when they get a different address and they pair it with the layout, they just go get the kid. Well, that not necessarily should be part of their run. And so it shifted timeframes on runs. So people were out there really early and then the bus came later a couple of days. And then the next day it came really early and they're like, well, we adapted and we weren't out there. And that's not the family's faults. We are getting those shored up and it's, again, much better. We even heard today from, we met with the LEA to talk about some different things and just reports that it is all getting better in a pretty rapid pace. We're not there yet, but it is getting better. We also have some new challenges too with students figuring out what the routes are and then walking to a nearby bus stop to get on a bus when middle and high schoolers should actually be walkers. So we're trying to just make sure we're mindful of that. In the past, when everything was on a piece of paper, nobody had any idea. But now that we're using software to try to optimize this, we know exactly where they live and they should be walking. And for years they took the bus, but they shouldn't have been. And so we're seeing some corrections there, being mindful of the level of need of families and just how far are they. Trying to clarify policy. I think a lot of people were thinking that if you live over a mile away, it means this or that, but there are also other provisions. It's a mile and a quarter for different age groups, but also we don't have people crossing Main Street. We don't have people crossing Russell. So that's all part of the language also. And so trying to clarify that for families, I think has been helpful. They're not always happy, but I think they understand. We've had a lot of address shifts. And so a big one that we've tried to resolve, a lot of people bring their kids to and from school in elementary school. But when they go to middle school, they send them on the bus. It's an age thing, comfort, stage of development. Well, if they don't tell us, we don't know. And so we've had, I don't want to say hundreds, but there have been, I think, hundreds of family situations, whether they used to go to a daycare and now they don't. They used to get dropped off by parents, now they don't. Or there's been a family situation, so they get picked up here, but in the afternoon they go there. If we don't have those changes in our enrollment documentation, the system's not setting it up. And so that's been a big piece of the lift. But we're getting all that information in. We're using some spreadsheets and some checkoff processes to really organize what concerns exist. So we still encourage people to keep reaching out. If you didn't get a call back, but you left a message late last week, it's because I told our transportation department, fix everything you know is wrong right now, and then pick up the phone. I need you fixing phones, not getting in long conversations with people who are upset, because if you get the fixes done, they won't be upset. It's just delicate balance. So that's on me. If anybody wants to call my office and say, why did you do that? I'll do my best to explain it. But I really felt that our problem solvers that had the ability within the runs to make the changes, that's what they needed to be doing instead of fielding phone calls. They were getting to the messages and adding them to the sheets and making changes. But to call a family back, that could be another 5-10 minutes. I wanted them making changes as rapidly as possible. But again, the bus lineups are getting more consistent. We found some anomalies too. One came up today where in the past, say middle and high school, all the buses line up identically in the afternoon. They're just there. That's how they line up. Kids can almost, once they get the routine, know. They don't even look at the run. They don't even look at the bus number. Some kids probably don't even look at the driver. They just know that it's 27 steps this way and 15 that way, and I get on. Like it's just routine. Because of some of the run setups, and this is to nobody's fault, they were coming in at different times. And so kids day to day didn't have this set routine of where's my bus to leave school. Well, if that happens at the middle and high school and it causes, say, a 15-minute delay, that just exacerbates itself moving forward. So that turns into a 20-25-minute delay. So those kinds of things are things that we're working to resolve. It will get better. And we're also doing some other things too with special education. We've had some rides that we don't have the resources to commit to working through Hudson, which is a concern of ours. But we have some staff who have said, I'll do it. So the vans are getting daily use. If you see a Lewiston Public Schools van out and about in the mornings, it's typically for specialized transportation that lives in an IEP. And we're just trying to make sure we get all our kids to school and back safely. I think over time, as they hire and try to get more things on the road, that should work itself out. But if you ask me what's my number one thing right now as it relates to work, it's just all about transportation, but it is getting better. The heat, obviously a big topic last week. We had really hot weather, and this is something that has been brought to the committee before. I think it's prior to this committee though, when we talked about some springtime heat that had come up, and we really started looking at, well, what's our threshold to say we would dismiss early or not have school? I didn't feel like we reached that threshold last week, but I felt like we were really close. We were monitoring it. Bill and Karen went out and about with waters and popsicles and dispersing fans and kind of doing what we could, but our buildings are made to grab heat and keep it because of winters, and they grabbed heat last week and kept it. And so we had some concerns last week. I don't think we crossed that threshold, but I think we were real close to having a discussion about whether or not there'd be school or an early release to try to limit the amount of fatigue. My other challenge to that kind of decision is, what do we do with 5,600 kids when there's no school? They're in apartments and houses that may or may not have air conditioning. There's no one there to drop them off to. It's like got that kind of snow day feel to it. And I feel like we had talked in advance for snow cancellations that we would notify families the night before. I didn't feel like that was necessary at the time. And when we didn't make that messaging, I didn't want to do it during the day and cause confusion or safety concerns. But I think we're there now after last week. We'll see what happens. But I want to throw on your radar that we may have to have a conversation this winter about what do we want to do this spring if we have a week of 90+ degrees and there are concerns around that. Geiger, we had some students go home last week. There was a toilet that got backed up, and in an effort to kill the water to the toilet, the water line failed. And so I don't know if you ever shut off a toilet, like the water moves. And if you try to go shut off the knob underneath or the unit itself, and this was one of those electronic specialized units, so it's not as easy as it sounds, but in the effort to make it stop overflowing, it broke off. And so all the water just kept coming. And so we may have to replace a couple pairs of shoes from staff who were running around in that to move kids along. Our facility staff. So we ended up calling, not in the way that people wanted to use it. So yeah, oh gosh.
Was it sewage or?
There was the result of a flush. So let's go with that. That's enough detail. And so I do want to thank Bill, who went right over there, Josh, our facilities director, who went right over, and our facilities team at the elementary school at Geiger were just on it, and they protected the kids as much as they could and kept the water isolated so any contaminants wouldn't get in the classrooms and all that kind of stuff. So also to our nutrition staff who scrambled to send kids home with a bagged lunch to make sure they had food. Transportation who said, yeah, we'll call people right now. They were there within half an hour, I think, to try to get kids together, and the messaging went out. So thank you to the Geiger admin team, the facilities team, the nutrition team, transportation. It went as well as something like that could go. We did have ServPro come in, do an assessment, see what we got here. Bill actually and the facilities group had made the decision already that any drywall that even got touched with water, we're cutting it off now. We're not going to let it seep up overnight. So it was the fast action, again, in the really hot, humid, sticky water on the floor weather. That's what our facilities team was doing, and they didn't complain one bit. So again, just a big thank you to them. Families were great. A lot of people picked up, and we sent everybody else on a bus with a teacher so that we knew someone had somewhere to go when they got there. And for those we couldn't contact, we were able to fold them into other classrooms. And then again, we had professionals come in to look at it, and they said, you're okay to have classes. And we avoided a couple of spaces, made accommodation, and all as well. We had a bomb threat called in today at the high school. I've shared information with all of you. Hope you got a chance to see that. The response from public safety at our community is fantastic. It really, really is. I was proud to be working beside him today. We have, I think, I don't want to dive into detail and publicly because it's the procedures are there to protect our schools and our kids and our staff. But I tell you, law enforcement and our fire department, drop of a pin. They were on the move, and they were there very quickly. So I can't thank them enough for the work that they do. Last but not least, at least for now, and I'm sure I got 50 other things in my mind that I'm forgetting to share, but we've identified a new student rep, and the goal with that rep and last year's rep is to work on this new rep idea. And so I'll be meeting with them coming up to try to formulate that. So we got 2 students that are in, and we want to figure out, is it going to be a small team? How do we want to do this? And Linda and I have talked about the Lewiston Youth Advisory Council being some kind of connection to that. And so we're still looking at that possibility, but just want to let you know that it's not just sitting and waiting. We've identified someone new to get involved. Questions? Thoughts?
I just wanted to ask, is there a date for homecoming festivities this year? Is that happening? Because I haven't heard anything about it.
So I've heard a date for homecoming, but I don't want to share it because I haven't heard it's confirmed, and I don't want to create confusion. But I believe you're looking in the middle of October for a date. So just as yeah, I'll wait for the committee to do their work to put that out, because if I say a date, they're going to say you're doing it. But it's fast approaching. I think people should be shopping to do their jam. We fully support it. It's gone great the last couple of years. We've been able to do it and bring it back. So it's a good tradition to have back. So we'll be doing it again.
There's a committee meeting about it. They met last Tuesday and I was supposed to attend, but with Monday being off, I thought Tuesday was Monday and I ended up missing it. But Michelle Crowley had said anyone who's on the school committee that would like to participate can attend, and there's a Facebook page for it. There's a new updated Facebook page for it where she's announcing the meetings.
Thank you.
Agenda item number 14 is the report from the city council rep.
Thank you. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend last week's city council meeting because I was in the ER. So I don't have a lot to report from last week's meeting, but I will inform you all that we are having a special meeting tomorrow with the planning board to discuss specifically transitional housings, if regulations regarding zoning and licensing are necessary, reviewing the shelter overlay district and evaluate if any adjustments are necessary, review the mobile unit food truck regulations. We're going to be looking at this new state legislation, which is LD 2003, which impacts the recommendations of the commissions to increase housing opportunities in Maine by studying zoning and land use restrictions. And we do have a regular city council meeting next Tuesday, the 19th. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any updates from subcommittees?
You see the results of the policy subcommittees
On every
consistent
agenda.
work. So thank you all for helping.
Member Hurd?
Thank you. I know Jake and I have been working on trying to solidify a date for our parent subcommittee. So I know with the other billion things you have going on. So hopefully we can get that up and going soon.
Thank you. Member Bowden?
I said Plot. It's okay. I think Paul was raising his hand too. No, so there was a pathways subcommittee meeting that I forgot about and I did not attend. I will admit that. But I also got about like a million calendar updates with meetings that are upcoming from Jake. So I'm excited to talk about what's discussed at the next one.
Thank you. Member Beauplan?
Thank you. The curriculum subcommittee is waiting for directions on what we're going to do this year. So we're ready, willing, and able.
Great, thank you. Agenda number 16 is community announcements. Oh, sorry, Member Eames.
As the legislative rep, there's a Region 6 meeting on Zoom tomorrow night that I will attend.
I just want to make a note of that, and thank you in advance. The things that got put off to the January session are huge for schools. And so thank you for your attention to that detail. And I'll be reading too, but if you see something, let's get together and be talking, because we want to make sure we represent our unique needs.
Thank you. Community announcements. Member Medina?
This isn't a community announcement necessarily, and I meant to mention this earlier, but I was wondering if we could have a moment of silence. Today is 9/11. It's been 22 years. I mean, I remember I was in English class, 7th grade, and I just wanted to have a moment of silence to honor our first responders and the victims, if that's okay.
Yeah, we can do that right now. Thank you. Are there any community announcements? Nope. Future agenda items, Member Hurd?
Thank you. So I had contacted Jake about this last week. I have been talking to parents, but also LPS staff. And it has come to my attention that we have a very large Portuguese speaking population in our community. And unfortunately, we don't have a translator in LPS for Portuguese speaking families. So
Lucy translates Portuguese.
It's a position that's posted, but I think it's good to say it publicly because we are trying to hire that position.
So yes, so we don't have anybody. And I do know that my last PTO meeting, I did have to, we used an iPad for a translator, and I can tell you how frustrating and difficult that is. So I can only imagine for our students that are trying to learn and absorb information, how frustrating that is for them as well. So hopefully we can fill that. And if we need to re-look at that position or whatever we need to do, but I think we have an obligation to try and fill that any means way possible.
I think one of the bigger challenges with interpreters is rate of pay. We often lose people to rate of pay.
Know that Lucy Pedro has interpreted for the district in the past. She's done it at graduations and stuff, and she speaks Portuguese. Is she not available anymore? She's very busy, so I wouldn't be surprised if she's not, but.
So we have a number of interpreters that they work for Lewiston Public Schools in a contract capacity. So they do hourly, like for some of our hearings and things like that you all been in, but they don't work during the day full time. And so that's part of that challenge. We're looking for someone to help with the facilitation of communication with families and students and what have you.
Okay, thank you. Member Beaupont.
Yeah, Jake mentioned tonight that the enrollment was up to 5,600. I think we'll use ballpark terms. I thought he said 5,400 last meeting, and we had planned for 5,000. And I'm really concerned about the student teacher ratio in this emergency situation. None of us could have foreseen it, understandable. But I've received communications from constituents where one class that had 18 students in it, a primary class, now has 24. That's a 25% increase. I know we're short of teachers. I know we're short of administrators. I know we're short of ed techs. And I hate to ask more work from, a very jammed up superintendent's office, but I would like the superintendent's office to prepare a list of open positions by grade level, content level, in school, and I would like that to be received by all of the members of the school board prior to the September 25th meeting. For that reason, that maybe we can come up with some solutions. Teachers may be up to the gills just trying to manage classroom behavior and don't need new initiatives. We have, and I bite the inside of my mouth even saying this, but to reduce class size, we have some specialists that were promoted to their positions on their excellence of being a teacher. And I understand that they're helping out and doing more and helping the new teachers and helping interpret things and everything. But gosh darn it, we've got to get these classroom student ratio, teacher ratios down in some way. I know that, we negotiated a very fair contract with them, but I'm just concerned that there'll be even increased burnout now with more expectations on them, less ed tech support in the classroom that may burn them out, and they'll go to some other school that may even pay less, but it's a small rural school. So I want to approach this before it gets a crisis, before teachers take extended mental health absences, which I don't know how we'd provide for anyways. So Jake, if that's possible, that's something your office can do to get to us, and maybe we can just brainstorm what we can do to try to get some lower numbers. And I totally understand that, we've had this spike in enrollment that just came from left field. Thank you.
So we could put that information together. It's something we look at on the regular, up to and including today. I don't know of any classes at the primary level that are at 25. If you wouldn't mind reaching out to me offline, Paul, so I could maybe look at something more specific, but we can absolutely bring that back to you for the 25th. Not a problem.
Member Bowden.
Thank you. So I just wanted to bring this up. I'm really not sure what the policy is with Lewiston Public Schools and elementary schools and recess. But I would love to see policy committee maybe take a look at ensuring that kids are going outside every day, even if it's raining. I don't know what steps you'd have to take to make sure that would work out, but I'm hearing stories of kids who aren't going out because it's raining. And I just feel like there's so much importance to being outside in the fresh air. The rain isn't going to melt anybody. They're going to be fine. They're going to maybe get a little wet, but they'll dry, or they can change their clothes at the end of the day. I'm really concerned about our littles who really need to let out energy and really need to be outside every day. So if that's something we could look into, I would appreciate it.
I know I had asked at a past meeting, maybe in August, I don't know when exactly, but I wanted to bring it up again to request a future agenda item as soon as possible on getting our students trained and access to Narcan. whether they're at school or they're taking it home with them. I think it's really important for that to be in the community and in the hands of our youth. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that for now. Agenda item number 18 is to enter into executive session to conduct student A disciplinary hearing, Title 20A 10019 and Title 14056B. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Oh, and also a legal matter in accordance with 1 MRSA 4056E.
So moved.
Thank you. Seconded by member Bowden. Roll call vote, member Scott,
Yes.
Ward 6,
Yes.
Ward 5,
Yes.
Ward 3,
Yes.
Ward 2,
Yes.
1,
Yes.
yes, and Ward